This young man had just been complaining this morning that school was hell on earth, but who would have thought that a moment later the entire country would truly become a hell filled with monsters, something no one could have ever expected. Because just a moment ago, the city of Seoul was as bustling and noisy as ever, with people crowding into subway cars and large universities welcoming new freshmen. Song-woo, our protagonist, is a young man who had just finished his military service and returned to school, and on his very first day back, he couldn't stand the life of having to take the bus to campus every day. Because of that complaint about the crowd, Song-woo was teased by his junior Han-ho, an enthusiastic young man who thought he was talking about the special forces, especially about him lying. Song-woo knew his junior was all talk, so he teased him back, making Han-ho jump, and even though his mouth ran a little wild, the young man was still very patriotic. Han-ho declared that the resistance would definitely succeed. The country will definitely be unified again, but he was once again hit right where it hurt by Song-woo's words, as Song-woo knew perfectly well that he never watched the news, and had even delayed his military enlistment for some girl. Consequently, Han-ho's mood soured completely, and as Song-woo walked onto campus, the unusual silence made him pause, feeling guilty that his harsh words might have made the kid cry. But Han-ho denied it, and told him to look up at the sky, where a faint 99% was visible, and thanks to his 10 out of 10 vision, Han-ho noticed the presence of the word monster. Downloading, but it vanished the moment it hit 100%, so Song-woo saw nothing and assumed his friend was going crazy over some girl again. Then he pointed in the same direction, trying to prove his point. Unfortunately, the text had vanished without a trace, which made Song-woo change his mind and think his junior could no longer distinguish between games, dreams, and reality. He insisted it was just a hallucination, and Han-ho even had to slap his own cheeks to wake up. Then he asked to go for a cup of coffee, but received a cold refusal from Song-woo before leaving. Han-ho still insisted that he had clearly seen the word monster earlier. The two said their goodbyes, and from there, Song-woo went to classroom 404, where he sat through the lecture without a single word sinking in. Because he was so sleepy, Song-woo's eyes were about to close when he was startled by a large magical panel that appeared, asking a question about how to survive in a ruined world. What is the best profession? His sleepiness vanished, instantly replaced by a million questions of why. Whatever it was, it started urging Song-woo to choose right now, thinking it was just a dream. He rubbed his eyes repeatedly, then a buzzing sound echoed as the lecture hall was suddenly plunged into pitch-black darkness. The students erupted in chaos, but the strange thing was that it was the middle of a sunny afternoon, so even with a power outage, things shouldn't have been this dark. At that moment, their phones also stopped working. A system panel appeared in front of everyone, and Song-woo quickly realized this was no hallucination or projection app. Everyone was seeing the words 15 seconds remaining. Suddenly, a blinding light flashed, and mysterious cards were released one by one from some other space, each card bearing an image representing a class. Some people were curious about them, while others were wary. Someone warned not to touch them recklessly, but Song-woo's intuition told him that not choosing would be even more dangerous. Maybe something would happen after 15 seconds. Time continued to tick by, not waiting for anyone to think, as countless cards kept appearing. Then one card suddenly glowed brightly and a sword leapt out from it. Song-woo realized it was because the four-eyed guy had chosen the hero card. He then hesitated, unsure which choice was best in a ruined world when the different number of stars at the bottom of the cards caught his attention. Fortune favors the bold, so Song-woo decided to choose the card with the most stars, and his profession became necromancer with a 5-star rating. The card then flew into its owner's hand. The profession selection has ended. Those who fail to choose must wait for the next opportunity. Then the space brightened again, and the four-eyed guy was still stunned by the sword in his hand, and everyone around him was also in disbelief. He recounted how he had chosen hero, and then this thing fell out of the card, which made Song-woo even more certain that he had become a necromancer. But nothing fell out of his card, which confused him, and at that moment the first monster appeared and began to slaughter people, mercilessly attacking a young man. This terrifying scene served as a direct reminder to everyone present that the world had descended into chaos. The monster was small, but because it had a weapon, it radiated a powerful killing intent, its grotesque face looking ferocious as it licked the blood off its weapon. The terrified crowd instinctively fled, and in an instant only Song-woo was left in the room, standing frozen as he watched the monster, which had now noticed him. Ironically, he couldn't move a muscle. The other students started urging Misu, the one who chose the hero profession, to attack it with the sword as the monster began to approach Song-woo, who wanted to appeal to their old friendship. But it seemed the guy wasn't very willing, and Song-woo knew it, so he didn't press the issue. The monster leaped up in a frenzy, and Song-woo regretted not running away sooner and just standing there. It was too late, because turning his back on it now might get him logged out even faster, so Song-woo chose to face the monster, and a single kick from him sent it flying. He didn't forget to reassure himself not to be afraid it was just a 15-kilogram monster. Then every chair within reach was frantically thrown by Song-woo. The monster was getting tired and decided to play dirty, trying for a sneak attack, but of all the people to target, it picked the guy who had just come out of harsh military training. Song-woo finished it with a powerful blow from a chair. And the monster officially kicked the bucket. He was exhausted and out of breath. A notification board congratulated Song-woo for successfully hunting a goblin and receiving 10 gold, but he didn't understand what it meant. The people around were still terrified, and Song-woo realized that understanding these messages was crucial. Before he could think, more text appeared revealing his power to turn the dead into his subordinates. Information about the goblin he had just defeated also appeared. But while Song-woo was still bewildered and hadn't processed the information, the corpse of the goblin began to gradually emit a green aura. Its entire body levitated in the air, enveloped by the green aura. This was Song-woo's first subordinate, and he realized his profession was the ability to summon these undead creatures. Necromancer, a profession that seemed like it would be incredibly overpowered. Right after that, 2 more small goblins just like it entered through the door. This time, both of them held a small, sharp dagger in their hands. They raised their yellow eyes and looked around. Then they spoke incomprehensible words like Kika. Seeing this, the students' eyes widened in fear, shouting, "It's them again!" One of the girls suddenly said, "There are 2 of them this time." They slowly advanced towards Song-woo. At this moment, a line of text appeared on the notification panel in front of him. "Skeleton soldier is awaiting your command." Song-woo gritted his teeth and gave a mental command fight. "Kill them!" The small monster he had killed earlier, now called a skeleton soldier, immediately obeyed the command, stood up straight with its dagger, and the other 2 small monsters froze for a moment when they saw it. The skeleton soldier powerfully thrust its dagger towards one of the small monsters. Its hand grabbed the monster's head and then stabbed it. The newly stabbed monster hastily fought back. Pushing the skeleton soldier away, it roared. The 2 small monsters advanced together to fight the skeleton soldier. The soldier used its dagger to block a slash from one of them, and even though it was 2 against 1, the skeleton soldier didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. It was surrounded by the 2 other monsters. But it managed to counter every blow. However, a monster behind it took advantage of an opening and slashed, cutting off the skeleton soldier's arm. The soldier warily turned to look at it. Song-woo observed the battle and remarked, "If I just watch it fight like this, I'll have to fight alone next." He looked at the 2 ferocious little monsters. "They're just small-sized goblins, not that dangerous if I had a bigger weapon." Then he turned and reached out his hand towards Misu, who was cowering in the back. Misu tossed the sword over here quick, but he clutched the sword tightly to his chest, unwilling, and stammered, "Huh." Why, Song-woo impatiently explained, "Hurry up, I'll take care of them." Misu had snot running down his face from fear, yet he still selfishly shouted, "This thing is mine!" "I chose it first." Hearing that, Song-woo's face darkened as he pointed towards the 2 monsters. "Then you go ahead and deal with them." Misu looked at the 2 little monsters baring their teeth with wide eyes, shrank back in fear, and shrieked, "Eek, eek." A helpless Song-woo sighed and picked up a nearby chair. "Oh well, the old way is the best way." Misu wasn't even hurt, but he was still screaming his head off like a coward. Then he grabbed the chair and charged towards the 3 monsters that were cackling and fighting fiercely. He threw the chair at one of the monsters, sending it flying with a yelp. The skeleton soldier seized the opportunity and rushed forward, repeatedly stabbing the small monster, causing it to scream tragically, "K-E-K-K-E-K." Immediately after consecutive notifications sounded, "You have received 10 gold for killing a goblin." "You have received 10 gold for killing a goblin." A tired Song-woo wiped the sweat from under his chin. Blood dripped from the skeleton soldier's dagger onto the floor as the one-armed soldier stood up. It looked quite ferocious, and when Song-woo saw it approaching, he felt a bit bewildered and stepped back, saying, But the skeleton soldier didn't stop. It slowly drew closer to him. Song-woo broke into a sweat and looked down at it. His eyes showed his anxiety as he looked into the skeleton soldier's deep-set eyes, which had a flickering blue flame burning within them. He said nervously, I'm sorry, but your face is a little scary. Could you please look somewhere else for me?" The skeleton soldier was a bit startled when its master criticized it, and it dejectedly lowered its head. Sanju saw this and was shocked, thinking, "Hey, don't tell me you can feel disappointment too." Suddenly, the notification panel appeared again, startling Sanju. Under the influence of the necromancer character class, the skeleton soldier will always obey you. After that, The two small demons from before were also gradually covered in a blue flame. A notification appeared touch to learn more about the skeleton soldiers. The maximum number of summoned skeleton soldiers has been reached. At that moment, Professor Kim from behind asked in a trembling voice, "Sanju, what's going on?" Sanju turned his head and said, "I don't know either," but before he could finish his sentence, piercing screams rang out. Help!" The scream startled everyone, and they turned their heads to see a female student with her hair tied up holding a phone in her hand. She frantically said to Professor Kim, "Professor, I can't get in touch with the police." Although the old professor was also very flustered, he still comforted her calm down. Sanju glanced over listening to them and spoke up. "I guess this is happening all over the school campus." Or maybe he looked towards the window, which was covered by a curtain. A ray of light seeped through it, shining into the classroom. Sanju walked towards the window and yanked the curtain aside. Sunlight illuminated the window frame, but it turned out not to be sunlight, but the light of fires burning everywhere in the city. Sanju silently added the next words in his mind all over the country. The students in the classroom also moved towards the window to look outside. Everyone wore an expression of fear upon seeing the disastrous scene. Sanju thought with worry and unease, or maybe the whole world. At that moment, in the gloomy classroom, there were dead bodies and blood spread across the floor. Suddenly, someone opened the door from outside the classroom. They stepped in and shouted, "We shouldn't stay here anymore." Behind the school, plumes of smoke from fires rose into the sky. A voice urged, "Let's move quickly now." A male student in a purple shirt dangled a set of car keys as if he had just remembered something. He became more excited and turned back to say to the female student behind him, "That's right, my car is in the parking lot." But before he could celebrate, a few goblins suddenly appeared in the hallway ahead. Hiding deep in the shadows, the two students broke out in a cold sweat. The two goblins had just finished dealing with someone. They turned their large yellow eyes to look at the two of them. One of them was still holding a small blood-stained knife. Next to it was a corpse lying in a pool of blood. The moment their eyes met, the entire group of people turned around in fear and fled. Run! The two small goblins also gave chase as fast as lightning. They made a sound. The male and female students were the last two to run. A goblin quickly caught up with them. It leaped very high, reaching out to grab the female student while swinging its knife with the other hand. The female student, knowing she couldn't escape, had her face covered in tears. But then a stroke of luck occurred. Sanju's army of skeleton soldiers appeared and blocked the two goblins. 3 skeleton soldiers charged in and gave the 2 small goblins a beating. Sanju stood there watching them. They fought while screeching as if they were communicating. Sanju turned his head and shouted to the group, "Everyone run. I'll take care of them." Then he pointed embarrassedly at the skeleton soldiers and said to be precise they will. The panicked students screamed as they ran and scattered. Sanju saw everyone scattering and reached out a hand worriedly, trying to stop them. "Don't if you split up like that then," but before he could warn them, everyone had already disappeared. He became helpless. Oh, well, it's every man for himself then. He then imagined many things and thought, although it's not very clear yet, this game definitely has rules, and we are forced to follow them. Sanju recalled what had happened before. From choosing the card to when the goblins appeared, he thought to himself the distributed professions and the initial monsters are quite easy to hunt and kill. Sanju clenched his fists and thought, "I don't know if I'll be right or wrong, but I predict the survival rate will be higher if we fight them." He then looked towards the small demons. They were fighting fiercely. "At least I still have these comrades, ready to support me in battle at any moment." The arm of a small demon landed on a skeleton soldier's head, stunning it. The skeleton soldier seemed to be at a disadvantage, constantly retreating from the small one's attacks. The other goblin powerfully slashed across the skeleton soldier's body. It triumphantly held its knife and shrieked, "Cut!" Then it prepared to stab the skeleton soldier. The poor skeleton soldier's head was chopped clean off. The skull fell towards Sanju, the blue light in its eyes slowly fading away. Immediately after, the notification panel appeared again. "Your skeleton soldier has returned to the void." Hearing this, he furrowed his brow in fear. Sanju trembled slightly as he cheered them on. "Come on, take them down." The goblins cackled, "KKKK." From a 3-on-2, it was now a 2-on-2. The 2 goblins shrieked. Not wanting to be outdone, the skeleton soldiers also roared back. Then they charged at each other again. Light shone from their direction. A moment later, successive notifications rang out. "You have received 10 gold for killing a goblin. You have received 10 gold for killing a goblin." Sanju happily clenched his fist. Yes. He scratched his head and awkwardly praised the 2 surviving skeleton kids. Phew, good job. Then a notification appeared, "You have leveled up. Level 2. Sanju was a bit surprised. He looked at the level up notification. Could it be the status window then appeared with the character information, name IU Sanju level 2, HP 42 out of 50 MP, 13 out of 30, profession necromancer, class necromancer, strength 5, agility 5, stamina 5. Besides that, there was also information about his inventory equipped items and displayed skill information. He currently had 50 gold. Sanju pointed at the panel and wondered, are these my stats, huh? But in games, don't you get points to distribute after leveling up? Right after that, another notification appeared. Please choose an upgrade card. Below it were 5 cards including random stat, random skill, and random equipment, random strength, and random others. Sanju was speechless and thought, so it's a gotcha. Sanju looked at the cards. He observed them seriously and then chose one. This thing is always a crucial factor in any game. I wonder what I'll get. In his hand was the random skill card. Immediately, a notification appeared. Your maximum number of summoned skeleton soldiers is increased by 1. The 2 goblins that had just died were instantly reanimated as skeleton soldiers. Sanju now had 4 skeleton kids. At that moment, the panel also displayed a reminder your mana is critically low. Sanju looked and said mana is only 30. He looked over at the 4 skeleton kids. Then he remarked, so you guys aren't that expensive, huh? Immediately after. He avoided their gaze again and waved his hand, saying, I'm getting the chills. Sorry, but don't look at me like that anymore, okay? Hearing this, the 4 skeleton kids looked disappointed as a group. In the dim hallway, Sanju sat down somewhere. He was protected by the 4 kids surrounding him. Sanju let out a long sigh and said, all right, time to pull myself together. I'll make a mistake if my mind isn't stable. I don't know what will happen later, but for now it's still okay. He gritted his teeth and thought the first step is to try to survive and escape this place. That's what I can think of right now. Sanju stood up and said to the skeleton kids, let's survive and find a way out of this place. At the same time, outside the school, a horde of small goblins were torturing people. Tragic screams echoed, get away, get away, help me. Among them were the cries of the small goblins. Sanju looked down from a window on an upper floor. He angrily slammed his hand on the glass pane and cursed, damn it. I guess it's better up here. If I had gone down to the courtyard earlier then, as if with new resolve, he turned his head and said, but I can't stay here forever. Then he had the skeleton kids lead the way. Sanju stood on the staircase and said it's time to go down to the lower floors. As the skeleton soldiers were stepping onto the staircase, Thump Hanho ran up the stairs in fear, holding a knife huff. The 2 of them suddenly came face to face, stunned. She looked at the skeleton soldier and screamed in terror. She trembled in fear, squeezed her eyes shut, and swung her knife wildly at the skeleton soldier. The skeleton soldier couldn't react in time. It dropped the knife in its hand. He heard the noise and ran down, surprised to see his skeleton soldier. Is that Hanho? Her pale face looked at him in fear as she said, Sanju. She fearfully held the knife in front of her defensively. Who are these things? He looked at her helplessly and said, it's okay. You could call them my bodyguards, I guess, she replied doubtfully. Are you sure about that? He looked at her, beckoned with his hand, and said, Hanho. It seems you also chose a profession card, right? She looked at him with a puzzled expression. A card. Oh, that's right. I chose the thief profession card. He looked at her helplessly, put a hand to his forehead, and said, how many stars was the card you chose? She looked at him with a puzzled expression. Stars. Yes, it seems she remembered. She pointed cheerfully and said, a 1 star, a 1 star, but it was the brightest star. That's good, right? He looked at her with an expression that said he was at a loss for words. Let's just go with that. She looked at him confused. Yes, he? She and the skeleton soldiers walked down the stairs. As they walked, he pointed down and said, let's find a safe place first. As long as we stay behind them, we'll be safe. As they were walking, a blue panel suddenly appeared in the blink of an eye. We will be safe if we stay behind the skeleton soldier. The panel then displayed Thief's short sword combination skill. Level 1, combination skill class. Activation requirement, equip 5 short swords. Effect critical hit rate and gold acquired increase by 10%. Hey, you can see this too, right, Sanju? He paid no attention to what she said, instead placing a hand on his chin to ponder. A combination, huh? He imagined an army of skeleton soldiers and thought so. That means if we share the same type of equipment, we'll get a buff. Which means if we team up with a decent party, we can gain a lot of benefits. He thought of the skeleton soldiers, not just us, but them too. He looked at the skeleton soldiers thoughtfully. Although I'm not entirely sure their skills are truly formidable. This means that even if I play solo, playing with these skeleton soldiers is enough to get buffs equivalent to a full party, right? Their group continued down the stairs. The skeleton soldiers and a horde of goblins came face to face. All of them stepped forward into a combat stance. Behind them was an enormous leader. It roared, its huge face filled with rage as it glared at their group. She pointed at them in fear and said, "Hey, it seems that one must be the captain." As the two sides faced off intensely, the panel appeared once again. The opposing goblin party is affected by Death Aura Level 1. Strength is reduced by 30%. Activation requirement: 4 or more skeleton soldiers in your party. Suddenly, the goblins looked at them with faces full of terror. Kikikiki. He looked at them triumphantly. "It looks like we're in luck." The skeleton soldiers' bodies emanated a green aura as they angrily charged towards the goblins. Their strength sent the goblins flying. Some were even injured and screamed in pain. Ignoring the goblins' pathetic cries, the skeleton soldiers continued to charge and attack relentlessly. She watched the skeleton soldiers and raised her hands in delight. Amazing! Seeing the smaller goblins under attack, the large goblin's eyes filled with rage. The giant goblin raised its large, powerful hand. Poised to strike down, a yellow magic circle surrounded the large goblin's hand. That magic circle grew larger and larger. The smaller goblins also began to glare at them with angry eyes. The blue panel appeared once again. Goblin Captain has activated the skill Savage Frenzy. The panel's text changed. The goblins have been empowered. The Goblin Captain advanced and grabbed the arm of a knife-wielding skeleton soldier. The Goblin Captain forcefully ripped the skeleton soldier's arm off. Seeing this, the other goblins drew their knives and charged in. She looked at the skeleton soldiers, her face pale with fear. What's going on? Should we run?" He looked at the skeleton soldiers with concern and advised her to wait a little longer. He watched the situation unfold, calculating. "I need to analyze the current situation." He watched his skeleton soldiers being fiercely attacked by the goblins. A thought flashed through his mind. They're all following the captain's orders. Therefore, what I need to do is... The Goblin Captain raised its hand once again. A large yellow magic circle radiated from its hand. He noticed the Goblin Captain's movement. A glint appeared in his eyes. That's it. His skeleton soldiers were constantly at a disadvantage. A skeleton soldier holding a sword lunged down from above using its blade. It slashed powerfully at the Goblin Captain's magic circle. The Goblin Captain's arm fell to the ground. It roared in pain and anger as that skeleton soldier landed. It heard the Goblin Captain's cry. The enraged Goblin Captain kicked the skeleton soldier hard, seeing that the Goblin Captain was weakened. The other skeleton soldiers seized the opportunity and quickly eliminated the goblins. A blue light suddenly glowed from their faces, seeing that the situation was turning bad. The terrified goblins tried to flee. Panels gradually appeared with text, "You have received 10+1 gold for killing a goblin." The goblins were continuously annihilated by the skeleton soldiers. Seeing its comrades being annihilated, the enraged Goblin Captain charged forward, slashing at the skeleton soldiers with its sword. The other skeleton soldiers saw this and swarmed into attack. The goblin cried out in pain. Grrr! The Goblin Captain, full of killing intent, turned to look at the skeleton soldiers. But before it could attack, it was taken down. A panel immediately appeared. "You have received 50+5 gold for killing the Goblin Captain." She watched the events unfold with an expression of utter disbelief. Seeing that the goblins were defeated, the two of them, they walked closer. She pointed to the weapons scattered on the ground and said, "Hey, Sanju, look at this equipment." He looked at her and said, "You're right." He went to pick up the nearby weapons and equipped them. 4 swords appeared with an information panel. Equipment information. Name, low-grade pig sticker. Rarity common. Classification one-handed weapon. Effect none. Next to the bracelet, an information panel appeared. Equipment information, name wild bracelet, rarity rare, classification bracelet, effect increase attack power by 20% when facing small-type goblin monsters. The skeleton soldiers were now also moving across the ground at a dizzying speed. The blue panel appeared again. 4 goblin skeleton soldiers gain an additional 20% attack speed. The buff skill will activate when conditions are met. Activation requirement: assemble a full goblin species party. The panel continued to display skill information. Name Savage Frenzy, classification D rank. Subclass buff. Effect goblin party receives a 10% damage and 20% attack speed increase for 10 minutes. Cooldown 1 hour. He raised his hand, looking at the new bracelet in surprise. This thing is pretty sweet. The one-armed skeleton soldier looked up at him with its sword in hand, its eyes full of expectation. As if understanding its thoughts, his expression softened and he reached out to pat its head. Well done. The skeleton soldier looked at him joyfully. The other person looked at the skeleton soldier with an expression of disbelief. "Hey, bro, what's with that face? Don't do that again, okay?" Hanho looked at him with great curiosity and confusion. "Where are we going next?" He turned to look at Hanho and replied, "Let's find a way out of this place first." In the lobby coming down the stairs, he was extremely surprised. "Over there is..." He pointed in one direction and said, "Hey, you guys go hide in the copy room. People will freak out if they see walking skeletons." Hanho closed his eyes, crossed his arms, and said, "Agreed. I was terrified the first time I saw them, too. Everyone will definitely panic." He held a shield in one hand and held out the other to reassure the crowd. "Everyone, please calm down." He confidently pointed to himself and said, "We are trying to contact the police, and the student council is also investigating what is happening at this school." An angry blonde-haired girl with golden eyes pointed at the door and shouted, "You think the police have time to come save us? Let's just break that door down and figure things out from there." He closed his eyes, raised a hand, shook his head, and said, "We've already tried. But no matter how hard we tried, it was impossible." The blonde girl angrily retorted, "Huh, what do you mean it won't break?" He looked at the blonde girl holding a hand out in front of him and said, "It's really true. So please, everyone, just calm down. Please follow our council's instructions." He walked closer, looking at the man with suspicion. He saw him and recalled a memory of him standing next to another girl, and then it hit him. It was his senior Lee Jin-seok. This guy is obsessed with hierarchy and is an influential figure at school. He's also infamous for harassing female students. He looked at him with a sense of helplessness. It seems his ambition is to get a position in the student council. He saw a few people getting close and shouted angrily, "I told you to stay away from that door. Is there something wrong with your ears?" Hearing his shouting, he and Hanho immediately turned around. He took a breath, then looked at them with a completely fake expression and said, "Oh shoot, I'm sorry. I've been so stressed today, that's why I lost my temper. You two might not know since you just arrived, but I only want to ensure everyone's safety." Confused, he turned his head to look at him. "He's acting so self-important, huh? I have a really bad feeling about this." He looked at Sanju, put his shield down, and said, "Sanju, you got a class card for yourself too, huh?" He turned and gestured towards Hanho, saying, "Ah, yes, we both got them. This is Hanho. Do you know him?" Hanho bowed towards him and said, "Hello, I'm Hanho." He looked at the two of them, scratching the back of his neck. Yeah, I remember. I think I've met this kid before. I don't come to school that often, so..." He looked at him, thinking with confusion, "Is that so? Then what made you decide to be so diligent and come to school today?" He looked at him and continued, "By the way, you two know we're in a dangerous situation, don't you? If you both have weapons, then help us protect everyone." He raised his sword and said, "Sure thing. We're always happy to help." His eyes full of annoyance glanced at the two of them. "Ah, what are your classes anyway?" He glanced at the sword in his hand and continued, "Looks like you're a swordsman, huh? I wonder if you'll be of any help to us." He patted his shield arrogantly and said, "I myself have killed a green monster before. It was a goblin, you know. Even with a weapon in hand, it's not easy to kill them. Not like me, I chose a 2-star card." With his defensive warrior class, he pointed to himself and continued, "If anything happens, just stay behind me." His eyes were full of contempt as he looked at him. "Yes, from a distance, that guy suddenly ran over with a terrified face, sir. I think I heard goblins upstairs," he said, as the other man panicked, turned, and pointed in one direction. "All right, everyone, try to stay quiet. Let's all hide in that coffee shop." He slammed his hand on his shield and said, "I will block the entrance for you." Then looked at Hanho, pointed to a corner, and said, "Hanho, come here. I need to talk to you privately for a moment." The two of them walked towards the door together. Hanho looked at the door in alarm and said, "Do you see it?" His face was extremely serious as he replied, "Of course I do." A blue screen appeared on the door. Once again, the door has been sealed by powerful magic. Defeat the final boss to release the magic and open the door. Failure to defeat the monsters within the time limit will cause the swarm of monsters in the building to become stronger. He angrily walked over and tried to open the door, thinking, final boss, 2 hours and 11 minutes left, the door can't be broken either. Hanho looked worriedly at the panel and said, "It seems this is the time limit. If we don't kill the final boss in time, will everyone die?" He grabbed the throwing knife, turned around, and said, "I'm not sure either, but we definitely need to find and kill the final boss as soon as possible. We can't count on someone to come and save us anymore." He was terrified, thinking whoever isn't level-headed will be killed first. He pointed to the guy standing next to him and said, "Hey, Sanju, you and Misu know each other, right? You're both in the same year." The guy, seeing himself mentioned, turned his head away evasively. Yeah, we know each other." He walked over, put his arm around him and the guy, and said, "I'll allow you two to be my trusted juniors. Let's form a party and fight together, okay? How about it, huh?" He heard this and said in alarm, "Wait, form a party right now. Are you serious?" The man looked at him with an annoyed expression. Do you have a problem with that?" He looked at the man and pointed to the door, saying, "Didn't you read the notice on the entrance door?" The man put a hand behind his neck and said, "Of course I read it. We can't get out, so we can only wait. Wait for the rescue team." He shouted angrily, "Wait for the rescue team. Do you think the police are coming here? What if this is happening all over the world? The police wouldn't have time to pay attention to us." The man said hesitantly, "Hey, you've done your military service, right?" He replied, "Yes." The man used his body and expression to gesture. "Then why would you doubt them? The army will definitely step in and everything will be fine." His face was full of annoyance as he looked at him thinking, "This is insane. How can the army possibly save everyone instantly? Okay, calm down. Everyone is in danger. I shouldn't provoke them." He sighed angrily and turned to leave. The man sighed, then looked at him angrily and said, "Hey, did you just snort?" He waved his hand to dismiss him and shouted, "Damn it, you two, get away from that door if you want to live. Listen to me and hide in the coffee shop." The other guy huddled against him and said, "Hey, sir, it's the goblins." He was startled and turned to look at him. "Huh, what is it?" The goblins were now coming down the stairs furiously. The people in the coffee shop looked through the door in terror. "Huh, it's them." He grabbed his shield in a panic and said, "Grab your weapons. We need to fight them. Don't let them enter the safe zone." A young man with brown hair ran towards him, shouting, "Sir, there's more. They've appeared in the hallway, too." At the same time, the skeleton soldiers also rushed out from the coffee shop, holding daggers in a ready stance. He looked at the skeletons in terror. What the hell is this now? He stepped forward to stop him from attacking the skeletons, saying they're not goblins. He was surprised. He stepped forward, brandishing his scythe, and said, "I understand that power comes with responsibility, but we need to be level-headed right now if a lunatic is chosen as the leader. Then we'll surely die." He looked at him in fear and said, "You're acting as if you've received some great power, huh?" His eyes glowed as he stared at him and said, "Perhaps so." A goblin exploded. A blue screen appeared. Debuff level 1 has been activated. Enemy goblin's power reduced by 30%. A blue substance gradually filled the air. The goblins standing in it were in a panic. That blue substance exploded like fire, burning the goblins. They looked at each other and ran upstairs to escape. The blue power radiated from his body. His eyes were filled with rage. Let the hunt begin. There was a commotion all around. Some people rushed to the windows to look down. Everyone was shocked. It's the goblins. Jin Seok was also stunned. What the hell is that? A group of skeleton soldiers rushed forward to attack the goblins. A goblin was dazed, looking confused. Before it could recover, a blow landed on its head, making it cry out. It was Sanju who had struck and encouraged the skeleton soldiers charged forward to attack the remaining goblins with his new power. Sanju killed the whole group with one swing of his staff. Jin Seok and Misu witnessed the scene, trembling like leaves. Jin Seok held his shield tightly, thinking to himself, "I was planning my escape from the goblins while he charged forward to kill every single monster." Seeing their comrades massacred, the goblins tried to flee. Sanju ordered, "Block the stairs. Don't let them escape." The skeleton soldiers quickly rushed out. The goblins could only screech, "Kiki." Sanju charged forward triumphantly. "Good, hold them for me." A plan formed in his mind. "If others see how I command these skeletons, they will surely understand that I can control the situation and we can easily fight the boss. According to the rules of the game, we definitely have to kill the boss. Fighting together is always the best way." The skeleton soldiers charged forward, stabbing into the goblins. The system displayed a notification: Thief's Dagger combination skill activated. Critical rate plus 10%, gold acquisition plus 10%. Sanju's wrist flashed, equipped Bracelet of the Wild, damage plus 20% against goblin-type monsters. He watched his skeleton soldiers fighting fiercely. He thought to himself, with this bracelet and buff skills, these goblins are nothing, but surely this world doesn't just have goblins. Other terrifying monsters will appear eventually. Just as Sanju predicted, the other students started murmuring, "Hey, that guy has the power to control the undead, right?" Another student replied, "Looks like it." Jin Seok and Misu could only hug their shields tightly and watch. A girl said in amazement, "Thank goodness, but who is he?" "What's his major?" The guy next to her replied, "I think he's our senior from the creative writing department." At that moment, the goblins were still fighting back. They ferociously slashed at the skeleton soldiers, shouting loudly. Seeing this, Sanju rushed forward and killed the last monster in one blow. He let out a sigh of relief. Phew, well done. After witnessing that scene, everyone immediately cheered. They hugged each other in celebration. "He's amazing. Someone so strong is in the literature department. My God," someone exclaimed. "Thank God, it's a relief. We have someone like him here." The corpses of the goblins were scattered on the ground. Sanju looked around and wondered, did they not drop any equipment? Do normal monsters not drop items? The system showed a notification: received a lucky ticket after killing 20 monsters. You are the 34th person to complete this limited achievement. Maximum of 100 people, he raised an eyebrow. A lucky ticket, huh? I don't see any in my inventory. How do I use it? The skeleton soldiers trotted toward Sanju. He praised them. Huh, well done, my brothers. Still, the sight of their skulls with empty eye sockets and glowing, toothy mouths made Sanju feel disgusted. He quickly waved his hands. Hey, I told you guys not to make that face. Sanju and Hanho walked with the skeleton soldiers towards the others. Jin Seok, who was still trembling, looked flustered. Sanju raised an eyebrow smugly and asked loudly, so how was it, sir? Were my guys useful? Jin Seok was embarrassed and didn't know how to answer. At the school's coffee shop, Sanju entered with his skeleton soldiers. Everyone looked a little surprised. He spoke up. I'm sure everyone has read the notice on the front door. We are currently trapped by a very powerful magic, the worried students asked. So what should we do? Is there any way to get out of here? He pointed to the notice board and said, according to the notice at the entrance, we need to kill the boss located somewhere in this building. Everyone started looking at each other uneasily and suspicion began to rise. He continued, there are only 2 hours left. We must defeat that boss. He lowered his voice. If we don't defeat it as required, the situation will surely become extremely terrible, and because it's a boss monster if we fight it individually. We won't be able to win. A trembling student raised his hand and said, I've seen it before. He recounted, I went up to the rooftop. I saw a giant monster appear there, and the professor in his mind was the image of a monster. It was covered in fur, its eyes glowing fiercely, and its hand was the dead professor. He began to think the rooftop, so the main target is there. Sanju spoke up, does anyone want to follow me? Everyone started lowering their heads and glancing at each other furtively with sweat pouring down as if afraid of being called on. Sungwoo turned to look, but no one dared to face his question. He thought to himself, of course there's no one. After all, this opponent was incredibly tough. One wrong move and you could lose your life in an instant. Hanho, standing beside him, called out softly, hey. He scratched his head with a forced smile. Maybe I should stay here. Sungwoo clapped him on the shoulder and laughed heartily. No, you have to come and buff the skeleton soldiers. Hanho started to cry and plead, please just take this dagger from your little brother. Just let me stay here. Sungwoo waved his hand, I don't need it. Suddenly a voice came from behind the two of them. Even if we all fought together, I doubt the outcome would be favorable, would it? They were startled and turned to see who it was. A girl with shoulder-length hair dressed in sportswear had a very cool demeanor. A long sword was slung on her back, and with one hand on her hip, she cast a disdainful look at the frightened people. She then spoke about the people behind them. They've only met a few weak monsters. They are also in an uproar now. How annoying. Then she turned to Sungwoo and looked, just go with your skeleton soldiers. Why bother bringing that useless baggage along? Your skeleton soldiers are much more useful. She was Jun Ji-soo, a 23-year-old third-rank tiger hunter. As she spoke, she threw a hostile glare at the cowards behind them who were both angry and afraid. Sungwoo thought to himself, no one knows how strong the boss is. This is truly difficult. He turned to Yin-seok. What about you? As if being called on to answer a question, Jin-seok jumped in alarm. He stammered, I think I should stay here. Someone needs to stay behind to protect the students. Sweat was pouring off him as his shifty eyes darted around gauging Sungwoo's reaction. Sungwoo felt helpless all right then. Stay here and hold the defense for me. Jin-seok's voice trembled, Sungwoo looked towards the stairs and decided to take the risk. We just have to go up. This will probably take quite some time. With that, he and the skeleton soldiers headed up, flanked by a resolute Jisoo and a reluctant Hanho. Sungwoo warned Hanho, don't let your guard down. Remember the teachings of General Yi Sun-sin. If you want to live, then pay attention. Suddenly, he sensed a commotion from the stairs below. A horde of goblins screamed as they frantically pursued them. Sungwoo realized it too, damn it. Another group is blocking the stairs ahead. He yelled, you two handle the rear for me. Without a word, Jisoo charged forward and sliced a goblin in half instantly. Its comrade barely managed a cry as it rushed in. It was also dispatched by a single slash from Jisoo. Detecting a noise behind her, she immediately thrust her sword straight into the monster. The goblin died on the spot with only a short cry. Jisoo single-handedly finished off the entire goblin horde. She looked at her handiwork and sighed in relief. Hanho, who had witnessed everything, turned to Sungwoo with his jaw agape in astonishment. Hey man, this girl is amazing. The sound of daggers being pulled from corpses made Sungwoo turn his head. Oh, it was the skeleton soldiers retrieving daggers from the goblin bodies. Hanho, now feeling relieved, spoke up. Never mind, I was wrong. General Yi Sun-sin is the real deal. Sungwoo smiled. Yeah, let's pick up the pace. The party continued upward and saw a man leaning against a wall ahead of them. He was covered in blood. Sungwoo was stunned. Professor Huang, the man whispered, Sungwoo. Sungwoo asked in shock, Professor, why are you here? The professor's voice was weak, my students. He sobbed uncontrollably. The kids are all dead. It's because of me. It's all my fault. Sungwoo tried to calm him down. Please, sir, calm down. Can you tell me what happened? The professor trembled as he spoke. Thanks to you, we made it to the research lab safely, he continued. But then I felt that staying in one place was not a good idea. So we all moved to the rooftop. I was just following the survival guide when I made the decision to go there. Sungwoo realized the problem immediately. Damn it, that place is. The professor recalled the terrible tragedy from that time and said up there, we ran into a horrifying monster and the students who trusted me. The team fell silent. Professor Huang gathered the last of his strength to speak. Sungwoo, never go to the rooftop. Don't go there. He clung to Sungwoo's shirt, trembling, and imparted his last words, you must survive. With that, he collapsed, and all signs of life disappeared. Sungwoo tightened his grip on his weapon. His face darkened as an immense hatred swelled within him. A notification appeared, side quest titled, Avenge the Professor. You may accept or decline this quest. Reward is a random skill. The objective is to kill the boss monster. You have witnessed the final moments of the old professor. This has made you feel his deep resentment. You can choose to avenge him by eliminating the monster, or you can decline this quest. The choice is yours. The time limit is the same as that of the main quest. Your choice will affect your destiny later on. Sungwoo wondered, destiny. Is this some kind of mandatory turning point in the game? He was completely bewildered inside. Damn it, why? Why do we have to endure this tragedy? Seeing Sungwoo determined to press on, Hanho asked hesitantly, hey, do we really have to go fight the boss? The skeleton soldiers also stopped to wait for his answer, but Sungwoo's eyes were burning with vengeance. He had made his decision. A notification appeared, you have entered the final boss's room. A column of smoke was rising thickly from the rooftop. Upon reaching the rooftop, the sight that greeted Sungwoo's group was a horde of goblins that had taken over the rooftop and made it their personal territory. The goblins had slaughtered the unfortunate students for a delicious yet horrifying cannibalistic feast. Sungwoo witnessed this scene. He couldn't suppress the rage boiling inside him. His face twisted as he cursed, God damn it! Lee Hanho stood behind him, horrified, his eyes wide with fear. He pointed a trembling hand at the goblins feasting on human flesh and stammered, that's a goblin gnawing on the corpse of a young man. Lee Hanho continued to speak with a quaver in his voice. He was my classmate. Jisoo, standing behind them, saw the scene and was filled with rage at these inhuman beasts. She gripped her sword tightly and yelled, you animals! It seemed Jisoo couldn't bear to witness such a horrifying scene any longer. She was about to rush out and slaughter the goblins, but Sungwoo quickly motioned for her to stop. He raised his arm wearing the red bracelet and thought to himself, I need to calm down and assess the situation first. How did we end up in a situation like this? Sungwoo continued to think before I wasn't strong enough to deal with this. After a moment, everyone calmed down. Sungwoo then waved his hand forward, signaling to advance. As he advanced, he thought to himself, I need to get stronger. Hearing the heavy footsteps, the goblin that was lighting a fire to roast human flesh suddenly turned around. It was startled to see Sungwoo's group approaching and immediately went to alert the other goblins pointing towards them. It communicated with its kin in a different language. Hearing this, its comrades put down their knives. The news spread like wildfire to the nearby goblins, and they quickly swarmed aggressively towards Sungwoo's party. Instantly, they formed ranks and surrounded Sungwoo's party. Lee Hanho looked so scared he was about to wet his pants. His face pale with fright, he trembled and whispered to Sungwoo, Hey man, maybe we should run away. But Sungwoo was determined to stay and face them with his small band of skeleton soldiers. He thought to himself, no, I have to face them. Then Sungwoo raised his hand and the red bracelet on it began to glow as he thought, come. Sungwoo confidently raised his hand to the sky and a magic circle instantly activated on it. Sungwoo had activated Savage Frenzy. The goblin party gains 20% attack speed but also takes 10% more damage. The bodies of the skeleton soldiers became wreathed in fire. Sensing the unyielding resolve from Sungwoo's party, the opposing goblins furiously charged forward to engage. But their attacks were rendered useless by Sungwoo's 3 flame skeleton soldiers, no matter how they slashed. Their swords passed through the gaps in the skeleton's bones, and they panicked when they found their blades stuck. Sungwoo's flame skeletons immediately retaliated with 3 quick slashes against the goblin. The first goblin shrieked in pain as its body was chopped into pieces. Enraged, the goblins continued to charge into the fight but were still overwhelmed by Sungwoo's flame skeletons. At that moment, Sungwoo yelled to everyone, use the corpses as shields. After saying that, Sungwoo charged forward using the spear in his hand to pierce a goblin's head. Jisoo quickly followed his command, her eyes filled with murderous intent. She instantly ran to the goblin next to her and sliced it in half. But only Lee Han-ho was still cowering, fumbling with his dagger and yelling in frustration. "This thing is useless. Why did I even choose it?" Lee Han-ho cried hysterically, tears and snot pouring down his face like rain as he recalled the past and continued to scream, "I thought this would be useful. Who knew it would be this useless?" Perhaps out of sheer frustration, Lee Han-ho accidentally grabbed the small dagger behind his back, his tears blurring his vision, but somehow Lee Han-ho was still able to throw it wildly. He yelled, "Take this," and surprisingly, Lee Han-ho's luck paid off. The dagger he threw randomly hit a small goblin in the head. The goblin next to it was startled and dodged to the side, hearing the sound. Lee Han-ho paused and opened his eyes to see the goblin he had just killed. He had a bewildered look on his face and uttered, "Huh." Looking closer, Lee Han-ho saw a group of goblins surrounding the one he had just killed with the thrown dagger. Lee Han-ho suddenly remembered his glory days and exclaimed in amazement, "Ah, that's right, this is my hidden talent." Seeing this, Lee Han-ho got excited and continued to throw daggers at the goblin horde, yelling, "Take this soon." Another goblin was sent to the afterlife time and time again. The goblins surrounding Lee Han-ho were quickly taken down. They grew terrified of his hidden talent. Then Lee Han-ho looked at his trembling hands and pondered for a moment. A moment later, Lee Han-ho's expression suddenly turned serious. Lee Han-ho told himself, "I've found it. This is my fighting style." The goblins saw that Lee Han-ho was now filled with killing intent, and they looked at each other in fear. Not knowing what to do at that moment on Song Yu's side, the goblins affected by the level 1 death aura had their stats reduced by 30%. This caused their flames to turn a pale green, meaning the threat was slightly reduced, but it was still enough to haunt the goblins and make them run for their lives back to their nest. Suddenly, from the direction of the crushed iron lockers, there was a loud crash that sent the lockers flying. The goblins were startled by this. They trembled as they looked over expectantly. Then a goblin chieftain with a wooden mace in its hand appeared. It let out a massive roar that shook the entire rooftop. The goblin soldiers immediately ran over and knelt, begging for mercy from this goblin chieftain. Lee Han-ho and Song-u looked on in astonishment. Lee Han-ho asked in fear that form, "Could it be the final boss?" At that moment, the boss looked from the pathetic goblin soldiers towards Song-yu's party. The goblin chieftain also shifted its target to Song-yu's party, and the smaller goblins quickly got back on their feet. A second later, the goblin chieftain roared, signaling the small goblins to charge forward for a troublesome slaughter. Once again, Song-yu clicked his tongue in annoyance. Then Song-yu used the spear in his hand to give two goblins a swing that sent them flying into the air with an enraged expression. Song-yu turned around and yelled to everyone, "Kill every last one of them for me." Iyu Jisoo, along with the others, also joined the life-or-death battle with the goblins. The fight reached its climax, with neither side giving an inch, but overall, the goblin horde was still being overwhelmed by Song-yu's party. One by one, they were blown away quickly. The goblin chieftain saw this. It suddenly became enraged and raised the mace in its hand high, signaling a bad omen. Seeing this, Song-yu shouted in fear to everyone. "Run now!" The goblin chieftain, with just one slam of its mace, created a massive fissure towards Song-yu's skeleton soldiers. The skeleton soldiers hit by this attack immediately collapsed to the ground. Immediately, Song-yu summoned two more new skeleton soldiers. The system displayed, "You have summoned a new skeleton soldier. You have summoned a new skeleton soldier." It turned out that the previous attack was just a feint to lure the goblin chieftain. The goblin had somehow already rushed towards skeleton soldier number 1, which was horrified and couldn't block in time, so it was smashed into tiny pieces. Fortunately, the other one managed to dodge. Song-u frowned and charged forward. He quickly dodged the scattered fragments of the corpse. Song-yu was resisting this menacing attack. But unfortunately, his mana was now only 20 out of 30. The system displayed mana 20 out of 30. Seeing this, Song-yu looked up at the system display with concern and muttered mana. Then he looked over at the pile of goblin corpses. An idea popped into his head. He thought to himself, there are a lot of corpses here. I can use them. Just as the goblin chieftain was about to finish off Song-yu, there was a sudden thud from somewhere. The goblin chieftain suddenly felt a sharp pain. It turned to look and saw that many daggers had been embedded in its arm. At some point, it turned out Lee Han-ho was the one who had thrown those daggers at the chieftain. Lee Han-ho smiled defiantly and even taunted it. "Hey, stupid, does it hurt, stupid?" But his coolness didn't last long as the goblin chieftain easily pulled out all the daggers. As if plucking hairs from its body, it roared angrily at Lee Han-ho. Seeing this, Lee Han-ho was so surprised he froze on the spot and stammered, "Uh-oh, why are you so mad?" Song-yu was also speechless, looking at Lee Han-ho. He said, "It's because you provoked it, what else?" And so the goblin chieftain immediately switched its target to attack Lee Han-ho. Lee Han-ho ran while screaming in agony. Save me! Hearing Lee Han-ho's cries for help, the skeleton soldiers appeared to intervene. Seeing this, Lee Han-ho smiled with relief. He thought he would escape this deadly chase, so Lee Han-ho was overjoyed, but his joy was short-lived as the goblin chieftain struck. With a single swing, it wiped out the entire group of skeleton soldiers just like that. Still, one lucky skeleton soldier survived the last blow. It quickly jumped onto the goblin chieftain and used its dagger to stab hard into its arm. The goblin chieftain roared in pain, then it immediately threw the skeleton off its body and gave it a powerful kick before the skeleton soldier could even catch its breath. The goblin chieftain charged forward to finish it off. At this moment, Iyu-Jisoo, seeing this, flew behind the goblin chieftain with a face full of killing intent. Iyu-Jisoo swung her sword and made a long slash. Across its back, a bloody gash was created and blood flowed out endlessly. The goblin chieftain clutched its bleeding back in pain, still trying to get up to continue fighting. Iyu-Jisoo stood near it, and seeing this, she looked at it with a cold expression and said, "This is the first time I've had to go all out." Then Iyu-Jisoo glared at the goblin chieftain as if it were scum with a cold look like a murderer's. She cursed, "You son of a b***." Seeing this from behind, Song Yu spoke up. In admiration of Iyu-Jisoo's hidden potential with the sword, her swordsmanship is truly top-notch and every movement is so graceful, she's really amazing. At this moment, Song Yu saw the goblin chieftain being guarded by Iyu-Jisoo and took the opportunity to summon his skeleton soldiers. Song Yu said, "I should recalculate my strategy." Song Yu's strategy was to have the skeleton soldiers surround the goblin chieftain from all sides. Then Song Yu mentally commanded one skeleton soldier to attack from behind. Then a skeleton soldier flew up, raised its dagger, and attacked the goblin chieftain from behind, and just like that, the goblin chieftain fell for the trap and went after the skeleton soldier. Song Yu, now seeing an opening, quickly dashed towards the goblin chieftain. With all his strength, he thought to himself, now is the time. At this moment, the goblin chieftain still hadn't noticed Song Yu approaching at lightning speed. It was too focused on dealing with the skeleton soldier trap set by Song Yu. Song Yu threw his spear with great force towards the goblin chieftain. In an instant, its ear was severed from its head. In pain, it clutched its bleeding ear and roared in agony. Just as Song Yu was about to use a skeleton soldier to finish it off, he suddenly lost his strength, and the skeleton soldier immediately reverted to a pale green color. Startled, Song Yu looked up at the system, which displayed mana critically low, 3 out of 30, he said angrily. "Damn it, just a little more." The goblin chieftain looked up, pointed at Song Yu's party, and said something. Then it pointed down at the remaining skeleton soldier, the heavily injured one, and the third one. Suddenly it flashed a sinister smile, revealing 2 sharp fangs. Outside at this moment, Song Yu finally understood its intention. He scowled angrily and cursed, "Damn it, I only have this many skeleton soldiers left. Will it be enough to win?" Then the chieftain immediately stood up and violently smashed the iron lockers. One of them flew towards Song Yu, who quickly dodged to the side. The goblin chieftain laughed maniacally, certain of its victory. It charged straight at Song Yu without hesitation. Song Yu looked at it in despair. Frustrated, he thought to himself, "If this goes on, we're all going to die. I need to use one more move." Suddenly, he saw a sword stuck in a broken iron locker nearby. He saw a ray of hope. He stared at the sword and thought of a single strike to take that monster's life. At this moment, the goblin chieftain was frantically destroying everything around it. It lunged and grabbed the head of one of Song Yu's skeleton soldiers. Seeing this, Song Yu turned purple with rage and seized the opportunity. While the goblin chieftain was still violently destroying all the objects around, Song Yu walked over and pulled out the sword stuck in the iron locker. Holding the 2 swords tightly in his hands, he then slowly approached the goblin chieftain. Meanwhile, Song Yu would have his 2 skeleton soldiers hold the goblin chieftain back for a moment. He commanded with his thoughts for the 2 of them to block his path, so the 2 skeleton soldiers started running in circles to distract the goblin chieftain, but the goblin chieftain had no time to play around and attacked the 2 skeleton soldiers ferociously at that moment. He suddenly saw a flash of light flying towards him. However, the sword's target was not him, but the skeleton soldier behind him. The skeleton soldier used all its strength to jump up and grab the sword. Seeing this, the goblin chieftain, he immediately swung his club, intending to smash the skeleton soldier, but the skeleton soldier managed to jump into the air in time and dodged it then. The skeleton soldier spun around, and with one strike hit the goblin chieftain's club. The force was so great that it sent both of them flying back. At that moment, the system suddenly appeared. It reported that based on party combat, the synergy effect had been unlocked. Song Yu looked up with a slightly surprised expression. The skeleton soldier from before was the final key to activating this effect. With it, the party's attack speed would increase by 10%. and weapon weight would be reduced by 50%. As for the skeleton soldier, it was now classified as a separate individual, a one-handed warrior. With a single sword equipped in one hand, its strength was gradually recovering. Seeing this, the goblin chieftain was terrified. Song-woo confidently picked up the sword. He looked at it in amazement and said, "If I link the weapons like this, then I can beat it." After that, Song-woo grabbed a nearby chair, dragging it along as he charged forward fiercely. "Take this chair, fist." Yoo Ji-soo and the skeleton soldier saw this. They also charged forward aggressively, both of them full of fighting spirit. The goblin chieftain was cornered from 3 different sides. The goblin chieftain was bewildered. Not knowing who to attack first while he was still confused and disoriented, he was hit from behind by the chair Song-woo threw. Next was Yoo Ji-soo. With her super speed, she delivered a slash across his abdomen. The skeleton soldier also joined in, slashing him again. At this point, the goblin chieftain was furious, unable to bear this humiliation. He went berserk and started smashing everything around him. Just as the goblin chieftain raised his club to finish off the skeleton soldier, a golden light shot out, and a dagger was instantly embedded in his hand. Lee Han-ho, standing from a distance, cheered happily. It hit. In immense pain, the goblin chieftain tried to pull the dagger out of his hand in a fit of rage at that very moment. Song-woo's eyes suddenly lit up. He gave a command in his mind. At that same moment, synchronized with him, the skeleton soldier's eyes also lit up. Go. At this time, the goblin chieftain was still struggling to remove the dagger from his hand, completely unaware that the skeleton soldier was charging from behind. Song-woo watched the skeleton soldier preparing to attack the chieftain, and tears suddenly welled up in his eyes. He silently thanked it goodbye. "Thank you for following me this far." Song-woo thought back to the past when he first collected this skeleton soldier and thought to himself, "You were the most stubborn one among all the skeleton soldiers I've collected." Seeing it about to charge in and finish off the goblin chieftain, Song-woo felt a pang in his heart. He promised himself, "I will definitely not forget your noble sacrifice." Song-woo's roar suddenly echoed as if following its master's will. The skeleton soldier poured all of its remaining strength into this final blow. Suddenly, Song-woo froze and exclaimed in disbelief, "Huh!" It turned out that the goblin chieftain's club had also been swung with full force, yet the skeleton soldier's single slash went straight through it without a scratch, which left Song-woo stunned. His eyes filled with disbelief. The system displayed the one-handed warrior effect can block 88% of the damage from the boss monster's first attack. The goblin chieftain had not anticipated this. And so, in the end, its head flew off its body in an instant. The goblin chieftain's body lost all its life force. The skeleton soldier slowly stood up. The system displayed. "You have received an additional 25 gold for killing the boss monster. System display, you have leveled up to level 3. Song-woo stood there silently looking at the skeleton soldier for a moment. Lee Han-ho quietly approached and asked him about the skeleton soldier's identity. "Song-woo, where did you get that skeleton soldier?" Recalling the past, Song-woo replied to Lee Han-ho, "I think it was the first goblin I killed with the chair fist." While they were talking, a bright light emanated from the skeleton soldier, blinding them for a moment. A moment later, the skeleton soldier's form slowly transformed into a higher class. The system displayed the goblin skeleton soldier has been promoted by absorbing the goblin chieftain's magical power. Defense has been significantly increased. The commander attribute has been added. Depending on the size of your legion, you will receive a synergy bonus, although the skeleton soldier's new form was a bit flashy. Song-woo wasn't surprised, but instead found something strange. He pointed directly at the tattoo on its forehead and exclaimed, "Huh, what's this?" Song-woo pointed at the blue flame and the tattoo on its head and asked curiously, "Huh, why did you go and get a tattoo on your forehead without asking me first?" But either way, Song-woo didn't mind much after that. He opened the status window to check. The system displayed Elite Goblin Skeleton Soldier Level 2 Weapon Katana Type Goblin. Attributes are undead, and commander. Reading that far, Song-woo couldn't help but wonder, a synergy bonus based on the commander attribute, huh? It sounds like it'll grow from a squad to a platoon and then become a whole legion, I guess. I need to increase the number of my subordinates even more. Lee Han-ho and Yoo Ji-soo also curiously opened theirs to look. They were both happy to see they had leveled up. "Oh, I leveled up too. Me too. I'm level 3 now." Then Yoo Ji-soo looked at Song-woo and asked, "What about you, Song-woo?" He hesitated and replied, "Me too," at that moment. Yoo Ji-soo switched to the gift shop. She scrolled back and forth for a moment, then asked Song-woo, "I still don't know what level-up gift to choose for level 2. Do you have any suggestions?" Song-woo looked and replied, "Well, everything is random, so you can only pray you get something good." Lee Han-ho seemed to have just learned about this system. Everything was new to him. He didn't even know you could see these cards. Lee Han-ho asked Song-woo. Blankly, "You can see these cards too, huh?" Song-yu sighed and replied, "Yeah, you can choose any card you want." At that moment, the system displayed on the screen, "Please select an upgrade card." The screen displayed the option Stat Skills, Equipment, Agility, and others. Song-yu immediately clicked on the skills category and said, "When I reached level 2, I chose a random skill upgrade and the number of skeleton soldiers I could summon increased." And this time is no different because the commander attribute requires a large number. He chose to upgrade his skills again, then a card slowly appeared in Song-yu's hand. The system displayed, "You have received basic bone weapon crafting." Song-yu looked at his hand a bit bewildered. A moment later, the system displayed an explanation of the skill's information. Name: bone weapon crafting level. Basic classification. Active skill: mana. Cost: 10. You can create a weapon from the bones of corpses. The following are the types of weapons you can craft. 1 is a sword, 2 is a hammer-type weapon, 3 is a spear, 4 is a bow. The quality of the weapon depends on the original materials. When the skill is upgraded, you can create more types of weapons. After reading, Song-yu frowned and said, "I can craft weapons from bones, huh?" While he was still confused about a few things, the system suddenly displayed another notification. "You have completed the mission. Avenge the professor. You will receive a skill reward. Your random destiny has also been changed." At that moment, Song-yu remembered the moment Professor Kim died. Song-yu choked up Professor Kim. He couldn't bear the sorrow any longer. He immediately pushed his sadness aside. The system displayed the maximum number of summonable skeletons has increased by 1. Song-yu looked at the skeleton soldiers and said, "So now I can control 5 skeleton soldiers." At this moment, Song-yu was still wondering, what does it mean that my destiny has been changed? It's so confusing. I'll have to be more careful when choosing new missions. Suddenly, a cloak fell from the sky and landed near Lee Han-ho. Lee Han-ho looked up blankly then. Lee Han-ho gently caught it and looked at it in amazement. He exclaimed, "A cloak!" Song-yu was also curious and asked, "What's that?" Lee Han-ho immediately put it on to try it out. Hearing that, he replied, This is the bandit's cloak. It increases the stealth stat against monsters by 50%. Hearing that, Song-yu said sarcastically, "Isn't that just equipment for running away?" Afraid that Song-yu would misunderstand him, Lee Han-ho became serious and defended himself. "No, I won't be a coward anymore. I've found my own fighting style." As Lee Han-ho took off the cloak, his gaze accidentally fell on Ayu Jisoo, and he saw she also had a new item and asked curiously, Nuna, what's that rock?" Hearing that, Ayu Jisoo looked blankly at the red stone in her hand and said, "It says, this is a fire magic stone." Lee Han-ho then came closer to examine the stone and said admiringly, "Oh, fire magic, it looks like a flint stone, doesn't it?" Ayu Jisoo sighed, shook her head, and said no. Ayu Jisoo carefully placed the stone in a box and continued, "If a weapon is sharpened with this stone, it will have a chance to ignite when fighting monsters." Lee Han-ho was amazed when he heard that. Wow, that's amazing. At this moment, Song-yu saw they were still muttering about something and reminded them, "Save that for later, let's get out of here quickly." A short while later at the cafe, everyone was still bustling with their tasks. In another area, Min-soo approached Lee Jin-seok and asked in a fearful voice, "Hey, Jin-seok." He glanced at Min-soo and asked, What is it?" Min-soo nervously glanced back at the people whispering behind them and asked tremulously, "Are we going to stay in one place like this forever?" His good mood didn't last long as Lee Jin-seok suddenly grew irritable again. He gritted his teeth, his expression furious as Min-soo went on to relay what he had heard. Everyone is starting to whisper. "They're saying we should have gone to kill the boss, that we should have listened to Song-woo." Min-soo continued, hearing them say, "That makes me feel." But before he could finish, an enraged Lee Jin-seok grabbed him by the shoulders and cursed. Damn it, Lee Jin-seok looked towards the crowd and continued to curse furiously. "Those bastards dare to whisper behind my back while I'm trying to protect them. If you want to say something, say it to my face." Suddenly, Lee Jin-seok angrily stormed towards the crowd. The group fell silent at the sight. Lee Jin-seok continued to yell as he passed by, shield in hand. He angrily cursed at the people outside. "Hey, listen up. You all love talking behind someone's back that much, huh?" Lee Jin-seok's anger boiled over. His face red, he pointed outside and screamed, "In that case, don't expect me to protect you anymore. Get lost. Get the hell out of my sight." The crowd became displeased with his attitude. Someone spoke up. "Hey, what are you talking about? Go where?" Lee Jin-seok cursed back, his shouting growing even louder. "If you don't want to be here anymore, then get lost. Go up to the rooftop and die like that bastard Song-woo." And with that, a brawl broke out. Someone in the crowd yelled back at him, "You think you own this place?" Lee Jin-seok angrily yelled back, "I'm already trying my best here." The fool scoffed and retorted, "Don't be ridiculous. What the hell have you even done? The one on the rooftop is the one protecting us." Hearing that, the flames of rage inside him burned even stronger. His face flushed as he screamed, "Son of a B asterisk, Shh, don't you dare piss me off, you bowl-cut bastard!" Hearing himself insulted, the young man lunged forward to fight him. What was that? Who are you calling a bowl-cut? Lee Jin-seok pointed at the young man's face and yelled, "I'm talking about you. Keep barking, you dog," Lee Jin-seok said, giving him the middle finger, ignoring anyone trying to intervene. "You think that bastard Song-woo is still breathing? Then go on up to the rooftop and die just like him." Lee Jin-seok's face darkened with rage as he screamed, "Keep barking, you dogs!" Suddenly, the whole crowd fell silent, but not because of him. Everyone's gaze had shifted to one side. Thinking he had silenced them, Lee Jin-seok gloated mockingly, "Why so quiet? You were about to—" Before he could finish his sentence, there was the sudden scrape of a sword. It touched him and a voice rang out. Who was it that died? Brother Lee Jin-seok was suddenly choked up, slowly turning his head to look back in disbelief. Seeing the skeleton soldiers holding their swords in a cordial greeting, he screamed and collapsed to the ground. Song-woo stepped forward from behind, looking at Lee Jin-seok with a disgusted expression. "You wanted me dead that badly, huh?" Song-woo paid him no mind and slowly walked towards the door that had been sealed shut. Then Song-woo gently placed his hand on the doorknob. Of course, since the condition of defeating the boss had been met, the seal was broken and the door opened easily. Lee Jin-seok, sitting on the ground, watched in utter disbelief. His expression showed his unwillingness to accept this reality. He trembled and uttered impossible. Song-woo turned back and scoffed at him. "Hey, you're a real eyesore." Lee Han-ho just smirked as if to provoke him. And just like that, everyone began to step out of this hellish school. As Song-woo's group was about to leave, Song-woo suddenly turned back and saw Lee Jin-seok looking awkward as if he wanted to say something. He looked at Lee Jin-seok skeptically and asked, "Hey, is there something you want to say to me?" He was startled by the question, then became flustered and embarrassed, not daring to look Song-woo in the eye as he scratched his head and stammered. Well. Seeing this, the students behind them began to murmur, "What the hell is this? That guy was always going on about how strong he was, and now he's acting like a total coward. He puts on such a tough act, but it turns out he's just a paper tiger." Hearing the students' all-too-accurate comments, Lee Jin-seok didn't dare to talk back and simply remained silent. Song-woo's group took the lead, heading outside to scout the situation. Lee Han-ho looked around fearfully and said, "It seems a bit too quiet out here." Ayu Jisoo replied, "I don't see any monsters either." After assessing the situation outside, Song-woo signaled to the people inside and said it's safe outside now. But everyone please remember to stay quiet. As time went on, Song-woo's group continued to lead the students, who followed slowly behind, more vigilant than ever. On the way, corpses were scattered all over the street. Looking at this scene, everyone felt a chill run down their spine. Whispers broke out. "There are no other survivors here. What are we going to do?" Song-woo speculated that the goblins usually traveled in packs and were perhaps hiding somewhere on the school grounds. Just then, Lee Han-ho suddenly noticed something. With a joyful expression, he pointed in a certain direction and shouted, "Hey, over here! It looks like there are people over there!" On guard, Song-woo gripped his sword and headed in the direction Lee Han-ho pointed, which led to a balcony where a group of people had set up camp. None of them looked particularly friendly except for a clean-cut young man dressed in white. He waved to welcome Song-woo's group. As Song-woo approached, his eyes fell upon their blood-stained weapons, and he thought in surprise, "These people." Then Song-woo looked them over and thought they must be survivors from the battle with the goblins. Suddenly, Lee Jin-seok, as if spotting someone he knew, hastily pushed everyone aside and yelled out, "Oh, it's the president!" The president saw Lee Jin-seok and smiled. "Oh, Jin-seok, you're still alive, I see." Lee Jin-seok approached him like a fawning puppy, clasping his hands together gratefully. "I knew a strong person like you, Mr. President, could easily defeat the goblins. I'm so glad to see you here." Ayu Jisoo glared at that young white-haired man, and she told Song-woo that's the student council president. Suddenly, Lee Jin-seok went to whisper something to the president. He kept looking at Song-woo while speaking to the president. Seeing this, Ayu Jisoo told Song-woo, "It looks like they're talking about you," Lee Han-ho said. "It's really pissing me off to watch." Hearing this, Song-woo felt a slight chill run down his spine. After they finished whispering, the president stepped forward. He smiled insincerely and introduced himself. "I am Park Dae-sung, the student council president." The girls on Song-woo's side saw Park Dae-sung and smiled shyly at his handsome face. Park Dae-sung continued, "I assume you've all gone through some terrible experiences. We are just like you, just trying to kill all the monsters. I promise to ensure your safety if you come with our party." Then Park Dae-sung's expression changed quickly when he saw Song-woo's skeleton soldiers. He pointed straight at them and asked, "But what are these monsters?" Hearing this, Song Woo replied, "I'm sure you already know. This is an ability from the class card I received." Park Dae-sung frowned. "You're accepting creatures that have killed humans." Hearing that, Song Woo suddenly realized his intention. He thought to himself, he's trying to paint me as someone dangerous. Suddenly, Park Dae-sung waved his hand, and his subordinates immediately surrounded Song Woo's skeleton soldiers. He said, "I'm sorry, but I must say that if you want to come with us. You'll have to get rid of these monsters." His men quickly raised their weapons and surrounded the skeletons, but Song Woo frowned and said, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." Park Dae-sung snapped at Song Woo, "You want to keep these filthy, mysterious monsters with you? You want to keep them around us?" Hearing that, an angry Lee Han-ho boldly cursed back, "What? Filthy!" At that, the skeleton soldiers turned to glare at Lee Han-ho. Seeing this, Lee Han-ho started sweating and stammered, well, actually, they're kind of cute if you look at them. And so Lee Han-ho and the skeleton soldiers started bickering. Lee Han-ho yelled, "We just need to teach them to be friendlier. Show some confidence." Hearing this, Song Woo said helplessly, "Han-ho, quiet down. You guys too stop messing around." Then he turned to Park Dae-sung and said, "I'm sorry, but let me make it clear. I have no intention of abandoning them. Killing them would be the same as throwing away my own weapon. Could you survive in this world completely unarmed?" Hearing this, Park Dae-sung smiled slyly. Then he said arrogantly, "I don't know about that, but if we can protect you, why would you need them?" He gave a cunning laugh. Forcing Song Woo to make a decision, he said, "I'm giving you one last chance. If you want to join us, you must destroy those creatures with your own hands." Outraged by his condescending words, Ayu Jisoo stomped her foot, stepped forward, and said, "Hey, do you think you can decide our fate for us?" She coolly raised her sword and threatened him. "When did we ever say we wanted to join your little club? Do you think the student council has the right to decide everything? Utter trash." Seeing Yu Jisoo's expression, Park Dae-sung asked seriously, "Aren't you the president of the Department of Physical Education?" Hearing that, Yu Jisoo scowled and retorted, "No. The school has already been destroyed. So what meaning does that empty title have anymore?" He was still trying to persuade her no matter what. He extended his hand in a friendly gesture and said, "Madam President, please calm down and come with us. You'll regret it if you don't do as I say." But Yu Jisoo shouted back at him, "Shut your stinking mouth. You act all high and mighty for the school, but I know you're the one who embezzled hundreds of millions of won during the school festival. You think I don't know about that?" Hearing this, he was stunned. Having gotten the upper hand, Yu Jisoo continued aggressively, "I was the one who posted about it on the school's website." Hearing that, Park Dae-sung and his cronies were even more shocked and gasped. Even though he was exposed, Park Dae-sung still acted arrogant. He suppressed his anger, trembling, as he said, "Well, then we have nothing more to discuss. Go ahead and do whatever you want. You'll just end up dying at the hands of those monsters anyway." Yu Jisoo paid them no mind. She resolutely left with Song Woo not even glancing back. Behind them, Park Dae-sung kept cursing, "You guys will regret this. If you don't stick with a party, you won't get the party bonus. You'll all die a painful death. You pieces of trash." A while later, after they had traveled a good distance from Park Dae-sung's group, Song Woo took the opportunity to ask Yu Jisoo about her earlier interaction with that council president. "Excuse me, but may I ask if you have some problem with the guys from the student council?" Yu Jisoo said coldly, "I just see him as a piece of trash, that's all." Yu Jisoo recalled Park Dae-sung's past and said, "He wanders around campus every day hitting on girls. A few members of my department reported it to me. He may have a high position, but trash is still trash." After hearing that, Song Woo somewhat understood her troubles and exclaimed, I see." As for Lee Han-ho, he flared up in anger and shouted, "What a son of a B***tich!" At that moment, Yu Jisoo suggested to the two of them, "First we need to avoid confrontations in those buildings and escape from here." Yu Jisoo continued, "If this is an escape mission, I want to avoid crowded places because monsters love to attack them." Hearing this, Song Woo fell into deep thought. After that, Song Woo pointed to the road behind him and said, "In short, we need to avoid the building areas. So taking the hill path behind the school will be much more effective. It leads straight to the main gate and there's hardly anyone there." Yu Jisoo agreed and followed him towards the back of the school. They proceeded with high alert. Lee Han-ho looked around for a moment and said, "It's too quiet here. I've got a bad feeling." Suddenly, Song Woo raised his hand cautiously and said, "Stop." Seeing this, Lee Han-ho was startled and asked bewilderedly, "What's wrong, man?" But Song Woo gestured for silence. Shh, because above them a monster was chopping something. Its axe was embedded in a goblin's body. The monster slowly pulled the axe out of the goblin. Then it looked up, sensing Song Woo's group's presence there. Its eyes glowed brightly. Seeing those murderous eyes, Lee Han-ho screamed in fear. "Whoa, what is that enormous thing? It's even bigger than the goblin boss." Song-woo was now extremely concerned. He narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, "The creature that appears after goblins is an orc." Suddenly, the massive orc let out a roar and stomped its foot hard. After that, the orc leaped down to the bottom of the stairs where Song-woo's group was standing. Although a little scared, Song-woo looked at it and smiled because this was his chance. He said, "Excellent, time to add a new subordinate to my collection." At that moment, the orc charged straight towards Song-woo with its weapon. Song-woo looked at it, broke into an excited grin, and said, "I'm ready for a fight." Song-woo looked at its face then. He saw that its expression was furious. Song-woo's attitude suddenly changed. He looked towards it, startled his face, now showing a hint of fear. Then Song-woo commanded his skeletons, and the others around him shouting, "Dodge now!" Lee Han-ho fell backward in panic and shouted, "How can such a terrifying monster even exist?" The orc quickly turned its head, changing direction. It turned towards Yuji-su and attacked her, but luckily she was quick enough to block the blow with her sword. "Attack!" Yuji-su's face was filled with discomfort as she let out a grunt. "Ugh!" The orc raised its weapon high again, wanting to attack. Yuri-shot charged once more, but luckily a skeleton soldier flew out and pushed Yuri-shot aside while it took the attack from that orc itself. The orc, not knowing Yuji-su had been saved, continued its attack and struck the skeleton soldier hard, slamming it into the ground with a loud crash. Seeing this, Song-woo turned back angrily and shouted, "Block it for me!" Suddenly, a blue flame appeared in the skeleton soldier's jaw, and then it held a sword its mouth, releasing a puff of blue smoke as it stood before the orc. The orc was so angry that smoke snorted from its nostrils. Then the orc raised its weapon high and swung down hard at the skeleton soldier, which suddenly leaped high with its sword and rushed swiftly towards the orc. At that moment, the system announced, "Lone Warrior activated. Damage from the orc's first attack has been reduced to 88%. And just like that, the skeleton soldier leaped up and slashed fiercely at the orc's arm. The orc was sent flying by the skeleton soldier's blow. At this time, Song-woo, standing on higher ground, shouted to Yuji-su, "Jisoo, get up here. Fighting from above gives us a much better advantage." Hearing this, Yuji-su ran towards Song-woo's position with her weapon, a weary look on her face. She thought to herself, "Damn it, I only blocked one hit, but why do I ache so much?" Now that the three of them were gathered together, Song-woo said loudly to Lee Han-ho and Yuji-su, "Don't get too close to it. We should use the same strategy we used against the boss." The orc was now furious, its body radiating killing intent. It slowly climbed the stairs towards Song-woo's group. After climbing all the steps, it let out a loud growl. At this moment, Song-woo and Yuji-su, along with the skeleton soldiers, were hiding behind some tree trunks. When the orc saw them, it roared loudly and advanced on their position. Seeing this, Song-woo turned and said to Yuji-su, "Stick to the plan. Let the skeleton soldiers be the sacrifice first." He glanced at the corpses of the small goblin monsters. He then thought, "Even though there are still many corpses, I need to manage my mana supply properly." The orc was relentlessly angry, raising its weapon high and slashing continuously. Song-woo saw this wasn't good and thought, "A clumsy brute like that will surely have trouble moving through the forest." Just then, the orc saw the skeleton soldiers in front of it and was startled to realize it was surrounded. Suddenly, Lee Han-ho appeared from the bushes in a flash. He threw his knife at the orc and shouted, "Now!" Seeing this, the skeleton soldiers also threw their weapons. The orc, being hit repeatedly by the thrown weapons, was in great pain and roared loudly, but it seemed it wasn't over yet. The skeleton soldiers charged towards it bare-handed. It let out an angry growl and struck hard at the skeletons. Suddenly, the orc was startled, its face darkening. It realized something was wrong. Its two arms were now held tight by the skeleton soldiers, making it temporarily unable to move. And just like that, Song-woo and Yuji-su charged forward with their swords aiming to take the orc's life. Both of their expressions were serious, but it seemed the skeletons couldn't hold on for long. They were thrown off by the orc. At that moment, the charging Yuji-su was also caught in the attack, but she took the opportunity to dodge its blow dash forward and slash one of its legs. The orc, with one leg injured, collapsed to its knee and roared in pain. Song-woo seized the moment to land another sword strike on its arm. The sword-wielding skeleton soldier flew high up behind it, startling it, and then the soldier simply and cleanly sliced off the orc's head. After the orc was killed, the system announced, "You have received 107 gold for defeating the orc commander." Afterwards, while wiping his sweat, Song-woo asked wonderingly, Commander means it's stronger than other orcs, right? Yurashot replied while wiping his sword. It seems that monster is ranked just below the boss. Song-woo reached his hand out towards the orc's corpse. Then he turned to look at Yu-Jisoo and said, "But thanks to it, we've gained experience fighting a new type of monster." Right. Suddenly, the system notified him, "The corpse does not respond to your summons. Your level is too low to summon a medium-sized monster." Hearing that, Song-woo was stunned and muttered, so I can't get a new subordinate yet. After that, Song-woo finished commanding the skeleton soldiers and turned to ask Yu-Jisoo, "Hey Jisoo, what kind of class card did you choose?" "As for me, I chose the Necromancer card." Hearing that, Yu-Jisoo replied, "I chose the Master Hunter card. At first I picked it because I liked the color, but it turned out to be a 3-star card." Lee Han-ho listened to their conversation, let out a bored sigh, and said, "Am I the only unlucky one who picked a 1-star card?" Sung-woo held out a hand enveloped in mana and said, My mana has finished regenerating. How about I try out my new skill right now?" Saying that, Sung-woo pointed his mana-filled hand toward the orc's corpse and said, "Let's see what kind of weapon can be crafted from this orc corpse." At that moment, the system notified Sung-woo. Simple weapon crafting: 1-6 lowest grade swords, 2-5 low-grade mace-type weapons, 3-2 lowest grade spears, and 4 lowest grade bows. 4 pieces. Sung-woo pointed at the system panel and said, the mace-type weapons are a higher grade. I should probably choose those. And just like that, the orc's corpse transformed into a mace. It was shaped from the bones of the orc. Seeing this, Yu-Jisoo exclaimed, "Oh, it really appeared." Sung-woo quickly picked up the mace, examined it for a moment, and said, "It's smaller than I expected." Then he asked Yu-Jisoo, "It's decent enough, right?" At this time, the system informed him. Equipment information. Weapon name: Orc Bone Mace. Grade Common. Classification: Mace-type weapon. After that, Sung-woo tossed the new weapon to one of the skeleton soldiers and said, "You guys try using these." Suddenly, the system appeared and informed him. First Manji's power level 1. Classification: Weapon Combination. Condition: Equip 5 maces. Effect when injured. Damage will be increased by 30%. The system then displayed the second one. 1 swing, 1 kill, level 1. Classification: Weapon Combination. Condition: Equip 5 blunt weapons. Effect: gain a 5% chance to stun the opponent with a single blow, while also increasing damage dealt to medium-sized monsters by 10%. After that, Sung-woo looked at the skeleton soldier that had just been given the weapon and exclaimed in confusion, Wait a moment." After that, Sung-woo tossed a red sword to Lee Han-ho and said to him, "Han-ho, catch." After receiving the sword, Lee Han-ho loudly said thanks and then asked Sung-woo for real. "Now I can also..." Before he could finish his sentence, Sung-woo said helplessly to Lee Han-ho, "I'm just letting you hold it for him. When I tell you to give it back, you give it back to him, understand? Don't you see how beneficial the Poison Hand Warrior effect is? Or would you rather chop off one of your hands to replace it?" Now they held their weapons and advanced. Sung-woo walked cautiously and told Yu-Jisoo and Lee Han-ho, "Keep a careful watch on our surroundings." "We're almost there." Lee Han-ho suddenly pointed forward with a surprised look and said, "Look over there, Hyung." Then he asked Sung-woo, "Why are there so many cars there?" At that moment, a sealed gate appeared ahead of them. On it, there was a message that read, "The gate has been sealed by a powerful magic. Defeat the final boss to break the seal and open the gate. Failing to defeat the target within the specified time will cause the monsters in this area to become stronger." And on it, a timer began to display. 8 minutes and 1 second remaining. Looking at the information on that panel, they immediately cried out in despair, shouting, Again, oh God!" At that moment, the timer showed exactly 8 minutes. Suddenly, the system appeared and announced, "The orc party has begun the hunt. Please choose a suitable location to fight. Orcs track their prey by scent. The stronger the prey, the more orc warriors will be dispatched." The 3 of them were startled when they saw this. They looked at the system panel. Lee Han-ho said worriedly, "Wait a minute, don't tell me they're coming here to get us." Sung-woo looked at it and said, So the stronger we are, the more orcs there will be." Suddenly, Yu-Jisoo turned to look behind them and said, "If that's the case..." She looked at the footprints of an orc and asked, "Does having more people make it more disadvantageous?" Meanwhile, with Park Dae-sung's group, a whole horde of large orcs was charging fiercely toward them. The people around them watched this happen in absolute terror. Then a loud scream caught the attention of Yu-Jisoo and Lee Han-ho. Yu-Jisoo looked in the direction of the scream and said, "That direction, I think it's the student council group." Lee Han-ho trembled with fear and said, "If we were there right now..." Seeing this, Sung-woo said to the 2 of them, "So that means moving in a large group isn't a completely wise choice, huh?" Then they looked ahead and thought the important thing is to find a suitable party composition to fight all kinds of monsters. After that, Sung-woo thought to himself, "It's a good thing I chose the Necromancer class. At this moment, the system displayed a notification the first wave of attacks is about to begin. This first wave consists of 5 orcs. Seeing this, Lee Han-ho was extremely surprised and said fearfully, 5 orcs. I thought there would be fewer monsters than the student council's side, but 5 of them. Before he could finish his sentence, from a distance they were charging towards Sungwoo, screaming loudly. Lee Han-ho was startled and scared when he heard their cries. Seeing this, Sungwoo said, looks like that's them. Lee Han-ho, worried and trembling with fear, said to him, Hyung, it looks like they're hunting us. What should we do now? Hearing that, Sungwoo looked at the cars parked on the other side. Then he smiled and said to them, I just came up with a good idea. Lee Han-ho looked at him dubiously and asked, a good idea? You mean running away is the best strategy, right? Hearing this, Yoo Ji-soo looked helplessly at Lee Han-ho, who was preparing to escape. Then Sungwoo said to them, let's set a trap for them. Sungwoo smiled confidently and pointed toward the cars and the skeleton soldiers and said, we'll use the terrain and my skeleton soldier teammates. After the orcs finished killing his skeleton soldiers, they picked up their axes and continued to move forward. They looked around as if searching for something. Suddenly, they spotted the figure of a young man standing on a pile of cars shouting, hey, you lot! That person was Lee Han-ho. He shouted a taunt that's right. You fat pigs! Hearing him say that, the orcs became furious and growled, glaring at him. Lee Han-ho was so scared he turned pale, but he still managed to stammer out another insult. Pigs! The orcs roared and charged quickly toward Lee Han-ho to attack. Suddenly, they saw something ahead that startled them and made them halt. Next, they were hit by something and thrown back. The one who had just appeared was Sungwoo and his skeleton soldiers. Sungwoo ordered the group of skeleton soldiers to attack the terrified orcs. Following his command, a skeleton soldier brought a mace down from the sky onto an orc's head, stunning it completely. The group of skeleton soldiers attacked relentlessly, giving the orcs no chance to fight back. The orcs could only endure the blows and scream in pain. Beaten by the skeleton soldiers, the orcs gradually collapsed. Then he shouted, advance! During the battle, the system continuously announced, you have received 43 gold for defeating an orc hunter. You have received 24 gold for defeating an orc hunter. Then 55 gold, followed by 70 gold, and finally 40 gold. The system continued to announce, you have received a reward for your victory. In the first wave, 100 gold. At the same time, another notification appeared. You have leveled up to level 4. The group of orcs had been completely wiped out by Sungwoo and the others. In the blink of an eye, the system notified him again. Summoning limit has been increased by 2. He looked at the system in surprise and said, it seems I've gained a new skill. Oh, what's this? He looked at the thing in his hand and his face darkened. And said, in total, I have 7 summons, but the problem is my mana pool is still only at 50. Beside him, Lee Han-ho's excited voice rang out. He looked at the dagger in his hand and said in surprise, oh, I got a new skill too. Sungwoo glanced at him and then asked, what kind of skill is it? Lee Han-ho replied while swinging his dagger, something called ultrasonic sense, but it seems it can only be used with the dagger weapon class. Then he turned to ask Yoo Ji-soo, what about Yoo Ji-soo? At that moment, her whole body was brimming with power. She clenched her fists, feeling her own strength, and replied, I gained 2 strength points. It feels completely different. My body feels energized. I can tell my strength has increased significantly. After that, while controlling the skeleton soldiers with his hands, he called out to Han-ho. He told him, give the sword back to it. If you want to use your skill, you're only allowed to keep the dagger. Reluctantly and heartbroken, Lee Han-ho tearfully returned the sword to the skeleton soldier. The sky was turning to dusk. Sungwoo's group was walking slowly down the road when suddenly he seemed to see something up ahead. He quickly raised his hand to signal and said to everyone, wait! It turned out there was a group of orcs smashing a bus up ahead. Sungwoo's group hid behind some tree trunks to observe. He said 7 orcs over there. It looks like some other party is fighting. Suddenly, a spear shot out from somewhere inside the bus, piercing a nearby orc. He saw it happen. He told everyone with some worry that if this continued, they would all die. It seemed someone who could use a spear was trying to stab the orcs through the bus windows. Seeing this, Yoo Ji-soo also said they had to help them. The group started to analyze and strategize. If they could perform a pincer attack, it would be easier to kill the orcs. Lee Han-ho asked him if that was possible. Sanju raised a hand to his chin and pondered for a moment. Then he suddenly perked up as if he had thought of something. He asked, but will the people on the bus understand our intentions? I'm not even sure if they think the same way we do. While he was thinking, the orcs continued to attack the bus. He continued, and it would be quite troublesome if they ran away instead of fighting. Then he suddenly smiled, pointed in a direction, and said, how about we do this? Let's show them the power of human civilization. Junji-soo and Lee Han-ho looked bewildered, then turned to look where he was pointing and exclaimed, "Ah!" Just then, the orcs used an axe to smash the bus window, causing it to crack and shatter. Inside the bus, a blond guy was terrified and shouted at the man holding the spear. "Attack them already! Don't you know how to use a spear, you fool?" The spear user's name was Lee Gyong-soo, a spearman. He was also trembling with fear and shouted back at the blond guy, "If you're so tough, then go fight them yourself. You have a shield and a sword, too." The other people on the bus were crying and trembling in fear below. One of them said, "Damn it, we're definitely going to die." The person next to him, with tears and snot all over his face, said, "I don't want to die yet." Just then, the orcs outside heard a noise. They turned to look and saw a truck full of skeleton soldiers heading towards them. They were startled, and then the truck just rammed straight into them. It sent them flying elsewhere inside the bus. The blond guy was still yelling at Gyong-soo, "What's wrong with you? What are you just standing there for?" Gyong-soo was still staring blankly at the scene outside and stammered out, "Skeletons outside Sanju's skeleton soldiers were continuously attacking the orcs." The long-haired guy wearing a hat looked outside and screamed in fear, "Who are they? Why do scary things keep appearing one after another?" Then Gyong-soo suddenly exclaimed, "It's so quiet." A curly-haired guy from among those lying on the floor also said, "Did they leave?" Gyong-soo continued to look out the bus window and saw a little skeleton soldier hanging on the window waving at him. He was so startled that he dropped his weapon and fell backward. Then he fearfully shouted, "Get lost!" Suddenly a hand knocked on the glass. A loud voice said, "Open the door." The owner of that hand was Lee Han-ho. He knocked on the door while shouting to the people inside, "We're humans, open up quickly, it's getting dark." Outside, the ground was littered with the corpses of the orcs. The bus door was opened inside the bus. Everyone was both scared and relieved. After surviving a near-death experience, they hugged each other crying and said, "It's unbelievable. We're saved." Outside, Lee Han-ho picked up a skeleton soldier's hammer and raised it high. Then he smashed it hard against the vending machine. The vending machine was completely undamaged, but he was exhausted and sweating profusely. Sanju looked at him with a bewildered expression and asked, "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" Lee Han-ho grinned slyly and said to him, "I don't have any spare change. Can you buy me a can of soda?" The blond guy saw this and said, "Here, let me buy it for you." Then he pressed a button on the vending machine and turned to say, "What is this? You accidentally broke the machine?" Lee Han-ho gave up. He scratched his head and asked everyone, "So should we get going now?" Gyong-soo sighed in relief as if a weight had been lifted and said, "Ah, yes." Suddenly Sanju pointed over there and turned to ask Gyong-soo, "Gyong-soo, did you say this thing dispenses items?" He replied, "Yes, we've tried it. But we didn't have much gold, so we could only try it once," looking at the square machine over there. Then he continued, "If you follow the instructions, it will give us an item." Lee Han-ho came over, handed him a can of soda, and said, "Oh, so this is an item shop." Sanju looked at him hesitantly and asked, "It's safe, right?" Suddenly, the machine's screen lit up, displaying the words, "Welcome to the E-Rank shop. Press anywhere to continue." Seeing that he immediately pressed the screen, the words that appeared surprised him. The electronic screen gave him 3 options. Choose a lucky spin. The first was the bronze spin, costing 100 gold. The second was the silver spin, costing 1,000 gold. The third was the gold spin, costing 10,000 gold. The E-Rank shop's highest option was the gold spin. The bright electronic screen displayed 3 choices. Sanju looked at the information displayed on the machine's screen. Lee Han-ho asked him, "Hey, does this thing really drop items?" Junji-soo said, "Even a knife can fall from the sky. Nothing is impossible." Sanju raised a finger to scratch his face and said, "If you want to know, just try it." He continued to look at the information on the screen. Lee Han-ho looked and said, "I only have 360 gold, probably enough for the bronze spin." Junji-soo, while opening her soda can, said, "I have 584 gold. Then Lee Han-ho asked Sanju, "What about you?" Sanju, still not taking his eyes off the screen, replied, As for me," Sanju said, "I have 1,552 gold." The other two were startled, hearing that Lee Han-ho immediately asked loudly, "Really, you can even do the silver tier?" Suddenly, the system displayed another line of text. "You have 1 unlimited grade spin ticket." Sanju recalled the earlier scene and thought, "I got this through the Hunter achievement, so I can use it now." Lee Han-ho looked at the screen and said in surprise, "Oh, you can do the gold tier too." Then Sanju pressed start and the screen began to spin quickly. Watching the spinning wheel, Sanju's expression remained quite calm while Lee Han-ho watched it with great anticipation. The wheel was gradually slowing down and coming to a stop. When Lee Han-ho saw the result, he said joyfully, "Yes, awesome." The wheel stopped on the 1 ST+ column, the most important thing for survival in this world. His luck Sanju held a round blue orb in his hand and the item information appeared. Its name was Tear of the Ocean Spirit Legendary Grade Subclass Magic Orb. Its effects include max mana plus 300 mana recovery speed plus 200%. Lee Han-ho said happily, "We hit the jackpot from the gold spin." Sanju held the orb and turned to look at Lee Han-ho and Junji. Suin said, "I told you so." Lee Han-ho exclaimed excitedly, "Hey, why don't you do a silver spin too?" Sanju asked helplessly, "Why do you keep wanting me to play the lottery?" And so Sanju, Lee Han-ho, and Junji Su started to try the spins. Sanju spun again and got second prize, winning the Vanguard Shield. Junji Su also got second prize, winning the Purging Longsword. As for Lee Han-ho, he spun by himself in a corner and got a C-grade potion pouch. He was sullen in his corner, cursing his fate. "Why did I only get this?" Sanju looked and said, "What if there's a good healing potion inside?" "Stop complaining." Junji Su sheathed her sword, looked into the distance, and said, "By the way, it looks like things are getting chaotic over there. Should we help them?" Lee Han-ho pouted and said to Sanju, "Brother Sanju, are we going to use that trick again?" Sanju looked back in the vehicle and replied, "No. This time we'll use something bigger." At that moment, the people on the other side were being chased and attacked by orcs. They were all panicking, running and screaming for help when suddenly something pierced through. One of the orcs, it was the team led by Park Sung, he was cutting down orcs while shouting to everyone, "Hold the formation, we'll forge a bloody path ahead." Someone in the team shouted, "Sir, some people are trapped behind us." At that moment, the people at the back were continuously attacked and killed by the orcs. Park Sung saw this and said fearfully, "Forget them. Do you think we have the strength to take care of all of them?" Then he ordered the two in front, "Jin Seok Human, raise your shields and block the attacks." Suddenly the orcs heard a sound. They froze and turned around. A bus had just appeared and rammed into them, sending them flying. The bus did a spin and knocked all of them away. The person driving that bus was Gyong-soo. He had a crazed look on his face, laughing loudly and saying, "Come to Papa Money." The system continuously announced, "You have received 55 gold by hunting an orc. You have received 60 gold by hunting an orc. You have received 55 gold by hunting an orc." Lee Han-ho was not to be outdone either. He continuously threw daggers at them, and the skeleton soldiers also lent him a hand. Then Sanju leaned out the door and shouted to everyone, "Everyone get on the bus quickly!" The people outside looked at him in surprise and exclaimed, "We should have followed him." Just then, an orc charged towards them. Junji Su flew out and slashed the orc, then shouted, "You orcs, I won't lose again this time." It didn't care and just raised its weapon high, swinging it fiercely at Junji Su. But Junji Su used her sword to block its attack. When she successfully blocked it, she rejoiced inwardly and thought, "I blocked it. I've gotten much stronger than before." At that moment, the orc's entire body burst into flames. Seeing this, Junji Su thought, "Now's the time." Then Junji Su raised her fiery weapon and slashed in a circular motion. Junji Su turned back joyfully, thinking it was a success. Suddenly she froze and looked behind her with a shocked expression. It was Sanju and his legion of skeletons. While Junji Su had only killed one, he had already killed many. The skeletons continuously threw daggers at the orcs. They were struck by the daggers, which made them cough up blood and die on the spot. Seeing them fall, the skeletons swiftly retrieved their daggers. Another orc, seeing its comrade fall, rushed forward and knocked the skeletons aside, but it was also showered with daggers from other skeletons. And it wasn't just one, but many more daggers that pierced it. After it fell, Sanju's skeletons coordinated smoothly to collect the daggers. Seeing this, Junji Su thought everything is going exactly as Sanju planned. Watching him, she couldn't help but admire his strategy of constant movement, maintaining distance and launching continuous attacks on the target while deploying his minions to strategic positions, ensuring no prey could escape. Suddenly, she tightened her grip on her sword and continued to mock herself, thinking, "Someone like me who worships strength lost to orcs right from the start. I feel like such an easy target." Junji Su watched Sanju relentlessly destroy the horde of orcs and wondered to herself, is he really that talented? Suddenly, footsteps approached Sanju. He stood before them, sniffed the air, and asked them, "Is there a problem?" He looked at Park Dae-sung's group in front of him and asked mockingly, "Didn't you say you didn't want to be around these monsters?" Park Dae-sung forced a smile and said to him, "Now don't hold a grudge. You came back after all. You're not a heartless person, are you?" His face hardened as he told him, "It's only because I saw you run away and abandon the others." The people in his group looked displeased and resentful, while he tried to awkwardly explain, "What do you mean, abandon? I was just trying to make a tactical retreat." He glanced at the people on the bus and said to him, "I hope everyone on the bus thinks the same way you do." He trembled with anger, staring at him, his lips bitten so tightly he couldn't utter another word of defense. Suddenly, the system's notification sound echoed. The orc chieftain is enraged by the failed hunt. Suddenly, Sanju felt a chill down his spine and a murderous gaze staring at his back. The others who heard the announcement were startled and afraid. They looked around cautiously. Sanju turned and boarded the bus, then told Park Dae-sung's group the bus is leaving. "If you listen to me, you can get on." The man behind Park Dae-sung worriedly asked him, "What should we do?" He snorted and said begrudgingly, "We have no other choice." Then Sanju turned back and said to him, "Oh, and give me that armor." Hearing this, he was startled and angry, He then shouted, "Why should I give you this armor? Don't I have the right to protect myself?" Sanju smiled, winked, and replied to him, "Of course, I'll protect everyone, but everything has its price. Unlike someone, of course. We don't have time to work for free." The system notified Sanju, "You have leveled up to level 5. The system announced again, "You can now summon medium-sized monsters into your army." Sanju was in a cheerful mood as he selected a skill card and said to himself, "Medium-sized, Does that mean I can summon orcs now?" Sanju said, "Just as I thought, getting a skill card is the most beneficial." As the bus sped down the road, the system announced the maximum number of summonable monsters has increased by 2. Sanju was delighted. "Awesome, now I can summon up to 9 minions." Sanju noticed a skeleton soldier approaching from behind. Seeing it, he called out, "Oran." Watching it struggle with the armor, he asked, "What's wrong? You don't seem to like it very much, huh?" He recalled moments from the battle and thought, "This is the skeleton I trust the most. That's why I gave it almost all my best equipment," he thought, "and I even gave it a name." Sanju sighed and said to it, "If it's uncomfortable, then take it off." He continued thinking, "Because it only has its right arm left, I named it Oran." As he was putting the armor back on, Lee Han-ho came over and called out to him. "Hey," Lee Han-ho pointed to the crowded group behind them. Then he suggested, "Should we get another bus?" The crowded bus was speeding down the road. Sanju replied, "Of course, we're going to rescue the others too." Sanju continued, "It's fine. We don't have the time to waste effort running around looking for them." Sanju walked over to the crowded group and announced, "Everyone, from now on, we will have to fight the boss." The system announced the orc chieftain has decided to declare a direct war. All orcs will confront the survivors with the goal of total annihilation. He spoke up again just as the quest board announced. "This is unavoidable because we can only leave the school after killing the boss." A man spoke up, "Hey kid, when I was in the gym, I witnessed everything there. The number of orcs is even more massive than before. There are at least 100 of them." Hearing those words, everyone immediately fell into a panic. While they were terrified, the system announced again, because the quest time limit has been exceeded, debuffs will be activated. The system displayed the first notification. Freeloader member penalty class. Condition more than 10 people below level 5 in the party. Debuff movement speed reduced by 30%. Attack speed reduced by 5%. Someone said in astonishment, "How are we supposed to fight them like this?" The screen continued to display the second one. Lazy newbie penalty class. Condition more than 10 people in the party have not killed any monsters. Debuff attack speed reduced by 10%. Gold acquisition reduced by 5%. Everyone was bewildered. How are we supposed to fight? The system wasn't done yet. Finally, despair penalty class. Condition majority of members have no fighting spirit. Debuff chance of entering a confused state increased by 10%. Someone screamed, "There are 100 orcs like that." However, Sanju wasn't worried at all, thinking confidently, "I already know how to fight these orcs effectively. So even 100 of them is no problem. This battle is a sure win." Amidst everyone's anxiety, Sanju declared, "I will fight alone." In his mind, he thought having many weapons doesn't mean they are all useful. Junji-soo exclaimed in surprise, What Lee Han-ho was also startled and shouted, "Hey, are you crazy? What did you just say?" Sanju remained very calm, pointed to himself, and affirmed once more, "I will fight them alone." The others murmured among themselves, asking, "Hey, did I hear that right?" Someone said in disbelief, "Is he insane?" Another person trembled in fear and said, "Damn it, he's the only one we can trust." Amidst the whispers, Park Dae-sung's group was sitting comfortably at the back, snickering and cursing that fool Sanju. Lee Jin-seok, who was with them, mocked him, saying, "With that arrogant attitude of his, he just dug his own grave." Park Dae-sung also said sarcastically, "So he was just lucky all along, huh? It would be great if that idiot died." Lee Jin-seok chimed in and added, "He's just a failure. He'll definitely get himself killed for that stupid declaration." Junji-soo disagreed and spoke up to stop Sanju. "Hey, Sanju, is something wrong with you? Even if we all worked together, how could we possibly fight that many monsters?" But Sanju calmly said, "That's what you said before we fought the boss on the rooftop, right?" Junji-soo timidly said yes. He also said bluntly, "That experience made me feel that fighting together isn't effective. In other words, the combat power of human teammates can't compare to the skeletons." To Junji-su's astonishment, Sanju continued, "You were right. I don't mean anything by it. You've been a great help so far." Sanju began to prepare his gear. He continued with a smile, "But I feel this battle will be very dangerous. I've thought it through carefully before making this decision." Looking at him like that, Junji-su was surprised, thinking, although I know Sanju usually plans his strategy before a fight, this time it's no joke. At the school, Sanju appeared alone, leading his legion of skeletons. In a classroom on the highest floor, far away, the others were gathered. Watching Sanju and his skeleton army walk out alone, everyone looked down from the windows and started murmuring, "You've got to be kidding. Does he really want to fight alone?" He walked past the bus. Lee Han-ho, Junji-su, and Gyeong-su, who were on the bus, watched anxiously. Lee Han-ho said fearfully, "Sanju has gone crazy." So Junji-su also decided, if the situation gets worse, "We'll step in." Gyeong-su agreed, "I'm ready to hit the gas too." Very soon after, from a distance, the target was visible, an army of orcs making a loud noise as they advanced towards Sanju's group. The orcs got closer and closer, roaring aggressively as they charged at Sanju with their weapons. Sanju calmly observed them and guessed that Red One must be the commander, huh? But then he realized and thought, but why isn't the notification window popping up? He must just be a sub-boss. Then the leader quickly ordered the orcs to attack Sanju. He remained calm and turned to order his skeleton soldiers. "Let's move." Putting down the iron shield, he made a decision and said to the skeleton soldiers, "We'll wait here." He observed the surroundings and said, "We won't have to worry about the terrain anymore." Sanju looked up again and continued, "This staircase is no different from the path behind the school." Sanju cheerfully looked at the skeleton soldiers standing guard in front and said, "Thanks, you guys. If you return to dust, don't forget me." The orcs charged towards the skeleton soldiers, screaming. Sanju chose to activate Savage Frenzy. The goblin army receives an additional 10% damage and a 20% increase in attack speed for 10 minutes. He shouted loudly, "Let's fight!" A rain of daggers flew ceaselessly towards the orcs, quickly taking them down. A few skeleton soldiers aggressively ran forward and continued to throw daggers. The orc leader also charged out easily, blocking the daggers flying towards Sanju with its weapon. Only then did things get tense. He thought to himself the dagger throw was blocked. Time for close combat! On this side, the skeleton soldiers were still attacking relentlessly. A critical strike came down from above, but an orc's hand grabbed the head of a skeleton soldier. That orc, filled with rage, stared at the captured skeleton soldier. Then the skeleton soldier was sent flying and shattered. He thought, this is a powerful sacrificial blow. The bone fragments scattered. One skeleton soldier seemed to be driven by a surge of power. Its fighting spirit flared, but he placed a hand on it to hold it back. He said, "Wait." He said coldly, "It's not your turn yet." The orc arrogantly crushed a skeleton soldier. It kept making provocative noises. Very quickly, a surprise attack hit its head. Blood splattered, and then it fell down as a stream of green energy was released. Sanju thought it's time for the orc skeleton soldier to enter the ring. The orcs started to feel a change in their surroundings. On the system screen, the words, "Death is obeying your command," appeared. His eyes glowed. The system announced again a combination effect has been activated. Manji Warrior Level 1, Class Weapon Combination. Condition party equipped with 5 battle axes. Effect after the first strike, receive an additional 10% damage. A 15% increase in attack speed for 10 seconds. Cooldown 10 minutes. The newly summoned warrior appeared. Sanju ordered slaughter them all. The summoned warrior was ready to devour the orcs. The battle was still raging fiercely. Sanju thought to himself, even if I have to charge to the front lines, no matter how many lives it costs. An orc was smashed to pieces. Suddenly, another orc that saw it seemed to be startled by a realization. Sanju continued to think that army is never afraid of death. The orc realized that its recently deceased comrades were now skeletons with green flames inside them. They had become warriors for Sanju to command. He looked at them and thought, because they are born from death. The undead army. He gave a triumphant smile and declared, "This is the fighting style of a necromancer. From a room somewhere." A blonde-haired person threw open a window and looked down. Everyone was watching the battle's progress from above. They stared down with wide eyes, guessing it seems like it's all over. Watching him annihilate the orcs all by himself, they were terrified and stammered, What is he?" They speculated, did he really get a high-tier class? The people inside the bus were also eagerly watching. Han-ho saw the battle and exclaimed, "Whoa, Sanju, my man must have gone all in on a bunch of skill cards again." He then complained annoyedly, "You should have told your little bro beforehand so I wouldn't worry." Junji-su was suddenly struck by the realization that everything was going according to Sanju's plan. She affirmed in her heart he must have considered almost every possibility. To be able to fight like this, On the system screen, information about Sanju's mana continuously appeared: 107 out of 305 mana, 184 out of 350 mana, 198 out of 350. Sanju was delighted and thought to himself, "My mana bar is almost full again." Item information appeared on the system screen. First Tear of the Ocean Spirit, rank Legendary, class Orb, effect increases max mana by plus 300. Mana recovery speed plus 200%. Sanju held the blue orb in his hand and wondered, so this is the level of a legendary item, huh? A burst of blue energy exploded. The system screen displayed Orc Party has been weakened by Death Aura level 1. Stats decreased by 30%. The orcs started to panic, growling. Then the leader let out a huge roar. It boosted their morale, changing the parameters. The system announced, thanks to the orc leader's fighting spirit, the disadvantageous stats have been reduced by half. The orcs resumed their ferocious charge. They wielded their weapons, continuously attacking Sanju's warrior. From behind him, it leaped over and charged to the front. Sanju looked at it and said, "It's your turn now." With its sword, it leaped up to attack. The skeleton soldier drew its green aura sword, slashing at the orcs, continuously dashing past the others and cutting them into pieces. A skeleton soldier charged at a large orc. Immediately, a green flame engulfed the orc, making it scream in agony. The flame incinerated them, leaving only a skeleton behind. Sanju's left eye glowed with a blue light. He glanced over and ordered clean up the rest. Immediately, green flames surrounded them. All the orcs were now annihilated. He let out a tired breath. A screen appeared. He looked at it and guessed, another reward. The system displayed a notification: a lucky spin ticket has been sent to you as a reward for killing 100 monsters. You are the 21st person in history to receive this mission's reward. This is limited to the first 100 people. 21st. He frowned and thought to himself, where are the other 20 people now? So this is a worldwide ranking. Sanju sat down on the steps and looked into the distance. Sanju saw a bus speeding down the road. He wondered who's driving that bus over there. Seeing the bus trying to crash through the purple barrier surprised Sanju. He jumped to his feet and thought worriedly, they're trying to escape from here. Without having to face the boss, he silently cursed these idiots. On the other side, a group of people was getting beaten to a pulp by orcs. He realized, is that the student council? Have those guys been captured? They were bruised and battered, screaming their lungs out, "Ah, save me!" Sanju put a hand to his head, gritting his teeth in annoyance seriously. What was so wrong with just staying put? They just had to go and mess everything up. A while later, inside the school, a person in the group behind him holding a weapon said urgently, "I'll fight too. I won't hold you back. At least I can defend myself." Sanju turned his head and glanced at him, thinking, I prefer to handle things alone. He warned irritably, just don't accidentally hit my skeleton soldiers. He led 2 large skeleton soldiers inside. The ceiling was covered with hanging corpses. Han-Ho looked around, both terrified and disgusted. He said, "This place looks too horrifying." The group followed him inside. In the distance, there was some kind of monster with a demonic aura. Sanju, holding the orb in his hand, stared intently and guessed, what is that thing? It is the boss, huh? Behind that large orc, many other orcs and monsters were holding the student council members hostage. Sanju waved his hand and ordered everyone get ready. "We're about to fight the Orc Lord." Hearing this, the group drew their weapons, preparing to attack. He looked at the people who were beaten black and blue, some unconscious, others trembling in pain. He gritted his teeth in anger and thought, even though I didn't see the student council's bodies earlier, the orcs are smart enough to keep them as hostages. Suddenly, one of the hostages looked towards him and spoke up. "Sanju, save us." He knelt down in misery, crying and begging, "Please, I don't want to die yet." He cried and trembled, saying with a desperate smile, "You'll save me, save!" But a loud shout cut him off. "Shut up." Everyone, including Sanju, looked grim. He glanced at them and said, "You people only know how to look out for yourselves and abandon others. Now you will pay the price for that foolish selfishness. You should realize that on your own." Sanju clenched the orb in his hand, blaming himself. "I already said I can't save everyone. I'm not some kind of god." In his mind, he calculated that the enemy was a group of monsters with whom he couldn't negotiate. After thinking, he said forcefully, "Everyone charge." He thought to himself, it will be very dangerous if those guys become the group's weakness, so let's just launch a surprise attack on the orcs. First, I will try to save as many student council members as possible. A terrified member of the student council begged the orcs wait, but it did not care and viciously slit his throat. Following that was a gruesome scene of blood splattering from the orcs' attack. Piercing screams echoed everywhere, terrifying all who witnessed it. Someone watching the spectacle immediately threw up. "Sanju, cursed you bastards!" Looking at the orcs in the distance, he thought, what are they planning to do? The orc chief saw the blood fly, bared its fangs, and let out a loud roar. The monster emitted a powerful demonic aura. It caused Sanji's group to panic. Ah, what is this? My strength, it feels like everyone's energy is being drained by it. The group lay sprawled on the ground, struggling to breathe. Junsu was coughing violently. The system displayed a notification. Due to the effect of Hell's Breath, you have fallen into a state of anxiety. Due to the effect of Hell's Breath, you have fallen into a state of weakness. Due to the effect of Hell's Breath, you have fallen into a dazed state. Your mana is being burned away. The Orc Grand Sorcerer enters the battle. A system notification appeared. The final boss, the enhanced Orc Grand Sorcerer, has entered the battle. Hanho, with a trembling hand, opened a vial of blue liquid. Hanho downed it in one gulp and wiped his mouth. He turned to Sanju and suggested, Sanju, you should use this potion. But Sanju seemed extremely determined. A blue aura radiated from him. Without looking back at Hanho, he said, take care of Jisoo for me. He inhaled the demonic aura and remarked, what is this smoke? What a debilitating feeling this is. Just then, a notification appeared on the system screen. Your mana has been significantly increased by Hell's Breath. Mana 4,585 out of 4,585. He was surprised my maximum mana increased. Sanji burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha, I feel so refreshed. A system notification appeared. Hell's Breath has strengthened your body. You have easily reached a stimulated state. All stats have been greatly increased. Your maximum number of summons has increased by 50. Now brimming with energy, he said confidently, I don't care what you did to me. But I want to know the secret behind this. The Orc Grand Sorcerer looked confused and let out an annoyed cry. Sanju taunted it. You've never seen a case like this before, have you? Hanho realized something and shouted. It looks like we have an advantage, just like back on the rooftop. Let's fight together. Sanju Jisoo also raised her sword with determination, saying, I will join in too. But he gave a cunning smile and refused, saying confidently, no. This time will be very different from that battle. The system displayed notifications. The corpse is awaiting your command. The corpse has become your subordinate. The corpse has become your subordinate. Hanho was extremely surprised, shouting, all of them are combination effects we're gradually activating for your party. The Orc Grand Sorcerer stood amidst the transformation of Sanju's army. Sanju thought to himself, the one who wields this power. The system continued to display information. Warrior Combination Level 1. Subclass Weapon Combination. Condition equip 3 or more battle axes. Effect 1. Attack speed increased by 20%. Weapon weight reduced by 50%. Hanho was terrified and sobbed. How can there be so many of them? The system continued to announce 2 one-armed warrior. Subclass weapon combination. Condition has only one arm. Effect block 88 damage from the first attack. Jisoo was also surprised as she looked at the system notification 3 warrior level 3. Subclass weapon combination. Condition equip 30 or more battle axes. Effect 3 damage increased by 15%. Attack speed increased by 20% for the first 20 seconds of the battle. Next 4 Orc Hunter Level 2. Subclass Tribal Combination. Condition more than 30 orcs in the party. Effect increases environmental awareness by 20%. Damage during combat increased by 10%. 5 Rebirth Phase Job Combination. Condition possess an army with 30 or more undead. Effect random recovery. Attack speed when chasing living creatures increased by 20%. A massive aura emanated from Sanju. The system continued its announcements. 6-party structure hidden rank. Subclass member combination. Condition Commander Phase 1, controlling a party of more than 11 members. Effect damage increased by 5%. Defense increased by 5%. Sanji's form had now transformed. His eyes glowed, filled with killing intent as he resolutely thought, I will show you the true power of death. A blast of power shot straight towards the Orc Grand Sorcerer. It used all its might to block the attack. Just then, the system announced Orc skeleton soldiers have risen. The Orc Grand Sorcerer noticed the blue flames that were surrounding it. The Orc skeleton soldiers launched a fierce assault on this most powerful Orc. As expected of the final boss, it could handle many skeleton soldiers by itself. But each time a skeleton soldier was struck down, it was immediately summoned and rose again. The final boss was utterly astonished, overwhelmed by their numbers. It was quickly wounded and cried out in pain, but despite its agony, the Orc skeleton soldiers kept rising. The final boss struggled to remain standing. Sanju asked smugly, how do you like this? Sanju said intimidatingly, this is your reality now, no matter how strong you are. There is one thing you cannot escape. Sanju's eyes flared with blue fire as he said, and that is death itself. Upon hearing this, the Orc Grand Sorcerer was utterly terrified. It immediately turned to flee, but smaller skeleton soldiers quickly appeared to block its path. Sanju said with contempt, you flies. seeing the overwhelming number of enemies. The orc boss was cornered with nowhere to run. Sanju mocked it, trying to run. "That is not happening, kiddo." As he finished speaking, he threw a punch in its direction. The orc cried out defiantly, as if to make a final stand. The army of orc skeleton soldiers quickly surrounded the final boss, which watched in terror as the horde rushed towards it. They swarmed forward, pinning the final boss down. In an instant, it was trapped with no way out. It looked at Sanju, pleading for mercy. Finally, it tremblingly reached a hand toward him, crying out, "Da! Da!" Sanju called for Oran. Oran stomped its foot on the ground, bracing itself. Sanju coldly commanded execute it. In the blink of an eye, Oran dashed behind the orc boss and delivered the final blow, striking with a powerful slash. At that moment, the system announced, "You have received 1,055 gold from defeating the final boss, the Orc Grand Sorcerer. Your Oren has also evolved. The system displayed elite goblin skeleton soldier has been promoted by absorbing the Orc Chieftain's magic. Defense has increased significantly. The commander attribute has been promoted." Sanju gradually returned to his original form. He looked at the system and mused, "Just as I thought Oran can get promoted by defeating bosses." Open subordinate list. Currently on the system screen, subordinate list 33 out of 59. 1 veteran goblin skeleton level 3. Weapon katana. Race goblin. Subordinate type commander level 2. Just then, Hanho noticed something glowing on the boss and said, "Hey, look, there's something in the boss's mouth." Sanju reached out to take it, thinking, could this be a new item? The moment he touched it, a system warning appeared. This item will activate the demon attribute for its owner. However, the player will have to make many sacrifices to be able to obtain this attribute. Sanju thought, a demon, huh? Their power is not so different from a necromancer's, is it? The system announced the demon attribute has been added. As he held the item, the system displayed its information. Name Blood Demon Stone. Rarity Legendary, subclass Magic Orb. Effect activates the demon attribute for the owner. Each attack will burn 2% of the opponent's mana. When the opponent's mana is completely burned, it switches to absorbing the enemy's strength. The skeleton soldiers disintegrated, and Sanju returned to his original form as the system announced. Because Hell's breath has been completely absorbed, the stimulated state has been lifted. Back at the school, everyone cheered and shouted with joy. We defeated the final boss. A chubby guy clenched his fist and declared, "Although I do not want to cause you any more trouble, I am sure I will be useful in the future." Someone else praised, "He really has the makings of a hero." Sanju frowned as he looked at the crowd, thinking, "I do not think I need any more people in the party. I have no idea what the world outside is like now, traveling in a small group. With fewer people is still the best way to survive." Just then, the screen on the barrier appeared, and then it suddenly exploded, creating a violent tremor. Many people witnessed it, and someone said in surprise, "Oh, is it finally going to let us leave?" Someone else said sadly, I think it was safer staying here." At that moment, 2 people approached the crowd gathered at the school who were looking around. A girl stood watching as everyone began to move out to continue their journey. She looked at Sanju and asked the person beside her, "Where is he going?" The man next to her replied, "I do not know, but I feel safer when I follow him." Hanho looked at his phone in a panic and said, "Damn it, the situation around the world is just as bad as it is here. I wonder if Mom and Dad are okay?" Sanju glanced over at him, then fell silent. His head bowed as he thought of his own parents. He noticed someone approaching from behind. It was Kyung-soo, who looked at him from a vehicle and offered, "Get in." "The roads around here are a bit rough, but I think it is much safer on the bus. I used to be a military driver, so I know there is a large military base not far from here. Let's all go there together." Sanju smiled and waved his hand in refusal. "It is all right. I want to go somewhere else first, even though I have to lie," he thought. Kyung-soo replied sadly, "All right then. Make sure you head there later." "Okay." Then he shouted loudly, "Everyone get on the bus. We will get to the safe zone soon. There is another bus, so there should be enough room for everyone." Jeong-soo smiled and wished Sanju good luck. He also waved goodbye. "Yes, good luck to you too, Jeong-soo." Sanju and Hanho watched the 2 buses leave. Hanho looked at Jisoo and asked, "So where do we go now?" "Hey Jisoo, where is your home?" She answered honestly, "I currently live in the school dormitory because my home is all the way in Jeju." Hanho was speechless for a moment. Jisoo looked at Sanju, smiled, and suggested, "So Sanju, can I go with you? I do not know how I can help you, but..." He quickly agreed, "Oh, of course you can." Jisoo said happily, "Thank you." Hanho, standing by his side, teased, "Hey, big brother. You do not need to say anything about this little brother, right?" The main character turned with a sly smile and said, "How about you chop off an arm and become a one-armed warrior?" He really wanted another teammate who could use that sweet combo effect. Hearing that, Han-ho looked at him in fear. Suddenly, Jisoo turned back, pushed the two of them, and shouted, "Get down!" A black object flew past. Han-ho asked fearfully what was that. Both Sanju and Jisoo frowned as they looked at it. The bus suddenly screeched to a halt because of that thing. At that moment, everyone on the vehicle panicked. Why did we stop, mister? You have to drive." Kyung-soo said fearfully, "I cannot. The moment I start the engine, we will all die instantly." He explained in terror, "Those monsters. They are attracted by the sound of the engine." Sanju's eyes widened as he looked at the creature before him. He thought many dragons were flying in the sky. One swooped down towards the bus. It then immediately snatched the bus. A system notification appeared. "Area Boss Alpha Wyvern has appeared." The dragon lifted the bus high into the air. Sanju thought in horror, no. The bus was now being torn to shreds by the flock of dragons. Sanju struggled with his thoughts. "I am not strong enough yet." He clenched his teeth, thinking, but this is a chance to become stronger. The main character suddenly spoke up. "Jisoo, we are not going to avoid them. On the contrary, we are going to hunt those monsters." She was surprised, He said decisively, "We must always adapt to the new environment. That is why we have to hunt powerful monsters instead of easy prey." Inwardly, he thought humanity will still rule the earth. Hearing this, both Jisoo and Han-ho looked at him seriously. Sanju clenched his fist, showing his determination. He thought, "That is why we will find a way to control them." The three of them moved forward together. They and their skeleton soldiers were ready to fight the monsters ahead. The system announced player has completed the tutorial. At that moment, in a certain city, a small goblin was panting as it ran in one direction. It screamed ceaselessly, reaching its hand forward. It kept running until it burst into a building, where many other goblins were hiding under a cloth. They poked their heads out to look at the newly arrived goblin, who was still saying something non-stop. The goblin that had just arrived panted heavily as it said something. Just then, a skeleton orc from behind holding an axe swung down on it. In an instant, its body was cleaved in two, splattering blood and gore, terrifying the other goblins. The skeleton orc quickly found the remaining goblins. Seeing they were discovered, they told each other, "Brothers, let us get out of here." One stepped towards a pile of junk to block the orc's path, but before they could run more than a few steps, a goblin was impaled. Sanju, holding a shield, opened the door. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the trembling, frightened goblins. "The system announced you have received 10 gold for defeating a goblin." He glared and said, "I knew it." The frightened goblins looked at the skeletons and Sanju surrounding them. He and his squad of skeletons quickly wiped out the remaining goblins. The system continuously displayed the notification, "You have received 10 gold for defeating a goblin." Although the experience gained was not much, the sheer number made up for it, allowing small gains to accumulate. Soon the system announced, "You have leveled up to LV6. Someone behind him said, helplessly, honestly. Han-ho leaned against the door, panting, and said, "You went and handled all the small fry here by yourself again." Sanju said calmly, "There were only a few of them." He sighed. Hunting these goblins does not pay much at all. Just then, the system presented him with 5 upgrade cards. For the level 6 reward, it announced, "Please select an upgrade card." 5 cards appeared: random stat, random skill, and random equipment. Random item and designated strength. Without hesitation, Sanju reached out and chose designated strength. He smiled and said, "If I can get a guaranteed increase of 3 strength points, why would not I take it?" After making his selection, his power had improved slightly. Though not much, it was enough to contend with bigger bosses. He looked at his own body and felt it saying it is real. The system displayed his information panel: name IU Sanju, LV6 HP, 50 out of 50 MP, 330 out of 330, class Necromancer, demon type, strength 8, agility 5, stamina 5, inventory equipment, skill information, EXP 0 out of 3,200, gold 5,837. He clenched his fist and said, "This feels completely different." Sanju and Han-ho stepped out of the building with the skeletons. The system continuously announced, "You have received 10 gold for defeating a goblin. You have received 8 gold for defeating a goblin. You have received 10 gold for defeating a goblin." Jisoo, standing at a distance, turned her head to look at them and smiled. "Are you guys done over there?" Jisoo and the other skeletons outside had also finished off the goblins. Wiping her sword, she smiled and said, "There were only 9 of them here. We have taken care of all of them." Seeing this, Sanju turned and asked Han-ho, "Great work. Han-ho, go and collect the daggers." A moment later, the daggers were placed in separate bags for the skeletons to carry. Suddenly, Sanju turned his head and said to the two of them, "All right. From now on, we are going to ignore the goblins." Han-ho asked in surprise, "Why is that?" Jisoo immediately understood what he meant. Holding the sword on her back, she said, "You mean we are going to hunt bigger ones, right?" Sanju nodded and smiled. "That is right. If you look at the bounty list, the most a goblin is worth is only 10 gold, while the head of an orc is worth a full 80 gold. So bigger monsters must have bigger bounties." A few minutes later, Sanju's group had made their way to a main road in the city center. Hanho grimaced and said, "I do not want to say it, but we look like an army of the living dead." Hanho suddenly spotted something. He looked in one direction and said, "Huh, is not that a military convoy over there?" Before them was a battlefield. The bodies of soldiers lay everywhere, submerged in pools of blood. Sanju went forward to take a look and guessed this must have been a battlefield. While investigating, Sanju noticed a figure hiding at the front of a vehicle. A trembling soldier held out a shovel. He panicked when he saw them accompanied by the skeletons. "Are you people even human?" Hearing this, Sanju sheathed his sword and waved his hand, saying, "Ah, we are human. We do not mean any harm." The soldier was overjoyed and quickly reported to another person. He shouted, "Sergeant Kim, they are our countrymen." The other person heard this and angrily replied, "Of course they are. Did you think they were goblins?" Sanju approached to check the situation inside the vehicle. The commander of this unit was named Sergeant Kim. Sergeant Kim said wearily, "I am sorry, but although he wanted to come out and greet them, but because my leg is broken and has been temporarily bandaged," he said with difficulty, as you can see. "With my leg like this, I cannot walk anymore." Sanju looked at Sergeant Kim and stated his guess. "It looks like you were attacked by goblin daggers, right?" Sergeant Kim gave a pained smirk and said, "Yeah, they were like children who knew how to kill, slowly assassinating our regiment, even though we killed the goblins." Hearing this, Sanju was a bit stunned. "Killed them. But what about your guns?" Sergeant Kim regretfully recalled their firearms and said the guns could not be used. Sergeant Kim recalled the earlier battle scene and said even though they were not damaged, no one knew why they would not fire. "That is why we soldiers use shovels and swords to kill them." At this moment, Hanho suddenly remembered something. He said quietly, "Brother I." He took out a red potion. Sergeant Kim hurriedly said, "Do you guys have medicine or something?" He leaned towards the vehicle's window and said no. Sanju rubbed his chin, glanced away, and said, "I'm very sorry, but you know, in a situation like this, no one can give anything away for free." Sergeant Kim, panting, asked, "Then how about trading for information?" Hearing that Sanju asked doubtfully information, Sergeant Kim said, "I will tell you everything I have heard or witnessed." Sanju said pensively, "Go ahead and tell me first." Sergeant Kim recalled the image of 3 wolves radiating a huge, murderous aura and said there is a pack of giant wolves. Their size is comparable to a bull. "We could not even catch one of them, and they wiped out our battalion." Sergeant Kim recalled the image of a QR code. He continued, "And a QR code. Have you ever seen a blue QR code before?" Hanho and Jisoo looked at each other doubtfully. Sergeant Kim continued, "I saw that thing over there. You can find it at the parking lot along this road." And at the subway station's transit hub, Sergeant Kim took out a phone and said with difficulty, "Scan it with your phones and then install the app." Look, the name of the app playbook appeared on the phone's screen. Sergeant Kim said, "This is the only method of communication we can use right now." A virtual social network, Sanju handed a potion to Sergeant Kim, thinking to himself an app for survivors. Sergeant Kim struggled to open the bottle and looked at the group of people. Sanju then asked, "Where are you guys planning to go next? We will leave this place to return to the base." Sanju turned his head to look at the pile of corpses and said, "Do you think it will be safer at the base, Sergeant Kim?" After drinking the potion, his wound completely healed. He unwrapped the bandage on his leg and said, "Ever since the players appeared, those high-ranking commanders have taken all the good weapons. Those bastards, we were forced to fight with other melee weapons, but I don't think that's too big of a problem." Hearing him say that made Sanju feel somewhat relieved. He had to bid farewell to Sergeant Kim. As for us, we still have some places to go. Sergeant Kim did not ask any further, but wished them a safe journey. "Well then, I wish you all a safe journey, but before you go," Sanju reminded them, "You guys should remember to keep an eye on the sky." Hearing that, Sergeant Kim wondered the sky. Sanju calmly answered his doubt, "Well, giant flying lizards tend to appear up there, you know." After hearing that, Sergeant Kim and the other soldier got spooked, but the sergeant still politely said thank you for that information.